Hello, every pony. Welcome to Brony FanFics. scaroe89 here once again with another chapter of Crisis Equestria. Today I will be reading Crisis Equestria chapter 24. I am so not wanting to do this because I recorded half of it a little while ago, and then my recording equipment stuff like glitched up, and it just deleted everything for some reason. So I'm gonna see how much I can do. I'm gonna do the whole thing. There'll probably be cuts and stuff. That's why this is taking so long. Anyway, so yeah, without further ado, Crisis Equestria, Chapter 24, Insurrection. Author's disclaimer: this chapter might be a little tough for to load for some, and there's a large chunk of the end of the chapter that loses some of its effect if you're viewing this on anything but Google Docs. I cannot stress enough, for your optional viewing pleasure, just stick with Google Docs. You won't be disappointed. Editor's note: June 4th, 2012. I recommend viewing this with a 20% increased zoom on the text document. This is just the maximum zoom support by Google Docs. This may help with the typographic elements previously alluded by the author if anyone is having more difficulty than is comfortable. Warning: the following chapter may be disturbing for younger viewers. Please watch at your own risk. Crisis Equestria, Chapter 24, Insurrection. 5 days! Applejack groaned as she tried to ignore her stomach doing the same. 5 whole doggone days. Bringing it to our attention again isn't helping matters any, darling, Rarity complained, competing with her stomach for who could complain the loudest, and losing. Yeah, every pony got mad at me for bringing up food before, Pinkie said with an accusing point of her hoof. No fair for you to get to do the same. Sorry, I can't help it, Applejack gulped. I ain't never gone this long without eating before. It's downright unbearable is what it is. I think we can all agree with you there, Applejack. Imagine that. Something we can all agree on for once, Tock noted with a sad smile. She shook her head. Come on, every pony, focus. We got another day plus some before we get to Hope's Point, and then we'll have all the food we can eat. We can make it. We just need to hang on and push ourselves as hard as we can. I don't know how you can be so energetic, Tock, Reddy frowned. Or you either, my dear Flathead. Neither of you seem to be much the worse for wear, if you don't mind my sounding a mite jealous. Tock sighed. Believe me, Rarity, it's not easy. Just a little bit of mental focus is all. Nothing a little experience can't teach. Experience? Applejack asked. Well, I've had stints out there before without food, mostly due to accidents like we've had, maybe worse there here and there, Tock explained, trying not to sound like she was bragging that she'd been starving before. But I'll admit, this is the longest I've ever gone. This ain't my first rodeo either, Flathoof added. Lockwood and I grew up in poverty, so we've seen almost as bad as this on a pretty regular basis. But yeah, this is probably the longest either of us has ever gone, and that was a long time ago. Brings back memories. Are you holding up all right, Fluttershy? Rarity asked behind her. The yellow Pegasus, busy making sure Lockwood was still steady on Flathoof's back as he slept, could only shake her head weakly. It only made Rarity frown more deeply. Oh dear, she sighed. I really wish there was something we could do. Anything would be better than this. Applejack nodded in agreement and held her hat tentatively in her hoofs, looking at it with depressed and desperate hunger in her eyes. She licked her lips in anticipation and opened her mouth to take a bite, and was barely shaking out of her sudden stupor when Rarity prodded her in the side. Darling, really, that's the 3rd time this evening, she hummed, replacing the hat on Applejack's head. You know very well how much that hat means to you. And besides, And besides which, I doubt it would be much for nutrition. I mean, as I may as well eat my dress. Right. Yeah, Applejack flustered. Sorry, though. Now that y'all mention it, she added, eyes drifting down Rarity's side to her torn clothing. Oh, no. Don't even think about it, Rarity hastily sputtered. It was a joke, darling. My dress wouldn't be much for nourishment either. Really now, Apple, I was joking too, Rarity. Applejack chuckled. I ain't gonna eat your dress. Just take it easy. If Lockwood woke up, he'd be in for a mighty interesting sight, though. That's for sure. To be honest, I could really go for some apples right about now. Apples. Pinkie started, licking her lips and looking longingly at Applejack's flank. Ooh, there's a few nice juicy ones right there. Applejack gave a shout as Pinkie suddenly grabbed her and tried to bite down on her side. Pinkie, get off! She yelped as she kicked Pinkie away. The hay is wrong with you. Eh? Pinkie mumbled as she rubbed her eyes. Oh, shoot! Sorry, Applejack got carried away again. Finally, there it is. Tock beamed as she pointed ahead, stopping only for a moment to make sure Twilight was still keeping steady beside her. Do you all see it? Pinkie squinted and looked off in the distance through the pair of binoculars she reproduced from out of her mane. Yep, there it is, all right. Thank goodness! She happily pointed, gesturing toward the rock formation in the distance. Phew! If we're nearly at the canyon entrance, that means we're about halfway to Hope's Point. Applejack eagerly said as she unfurled the map again. Not much further now, y'all. If we keep this here pace up, we'll be at the other side before morning. They increased their pace a little so they could get to the canyon proper, and arrived there in mere minutes. When they arrived, they took a moment to rest and breathe as they looked into the next obstacle that blocked their path. The canyon path appeared to slope downwards through the rocky cliff and led off toward the sea, twisting and turning and winding through solid stone and seeming to go off for miles before it finally got anywhere near the end. While they could see most of the canyon path ahead of the walls... while they couldn't see most of the canyon path ahead of the walls were jagged and formed ceiling-like formations in several areas. They could clearly see the ocean off in the distance still, closer than ever. It wasn't so much a straight gorge or anything of the sort. It just dipped smoothly downwards toward the ocean in a manner more applicable to a mountain pass, easy enough to traverse. Or so they hoped, at any rate. They weren't exactly looking forward to going through it, as it was rather dark inside, what with the canyon walls and ceiling-like rock formations casting deep shadows throughout, not at all helped by the nature of the rest of the region. It doesn't look as pleasant as I'd hoped, Rarity said dejectedly. I'd have liked to think a path like this leading down to our final stretch would be a little more, inspiring. Right, Applejack agreed. Only thing this here canyon is inspiring is the heebie-jeebies. It ain't as dark as them cabins back in Goldridge, at least. We ain't gonna need no unicorn flashlight or whatnot. Tock looked bewildered. Hello? Was any pony listening to when we went over this earlier? The name of this place is World's Round. What did you expect? Sunshine and flowers and fields of green? That would be nice for a change, Fluttershy peeped. Tock shook her head and sighed. Come on, Heavy Pony. This canyon isn't too long. We'll be through it in roughly 6 to 7 hours. We can make camp on the other side before we hit the coast. Take a much-needed breather and see if we can't find anything around to eat. We're going to want all the rest we can get before we try to cross the bone sand, because in our weakened state and with us missing an ally, we'll be bloody well hard-pressed to get across safely. Pinkie frowned deeply and sniffed. Dashy said she'll be bringing help. You'll see, guys. Just forget it, Pinkie, Applejack snorted. If she was getting things done like she thought she was, she'd be back by now. Oh no! Do you think something's wrong? What if something happened? Pinkie panicked. Relax, Pinkie Pie, darling, Rarity soothed. I'm sure Rainbow Dash is fine. Though that she hasn't come back yet leads me to think that perhaps something has delayed her. I'm sure it'll be alright. I'll be honest here and say that if she managed to get into the city already, then she's lucky, Tock said with a roll of her eyes. Oh, I'm sure she'll try bringing help, but at the rate we're moving, we'll reach Hope Points before she even gets in. Maybe we'll get lucky and be able to use her as a voucher. A what? Applejack asked. Long story. Short version is, it's not helping matters any thinking on what Rainbow Dash might be doing, Tock answered. The party entered the canyon and began the slow, steady descent down the gentle, rolling slopes, glad at last to have solid, comfortable ground beneath their hooves again, not that hot, barren sand of the wasteland, or the burning rock of Redblade, or the crackling, crumbling rocks of the cliff, or worse, the living, gooey sheen of red that coated the blood mire. It was almost like being back in Goldridge again, and reminded them all of the only highlight of their entire journey, before things had taken a sharp downward spiral. The ground was the only thing the canyon had to offer that was pleasant. Much to their disappointment, the walls were curved and slanted and cast shadows through the path. The rock overhead that formed natural bridges and ceilings all seemed unstable. What was worse, there seemed to be a great cloud of gray and black forming in the sky ahead, in the direction of the coast, churning and rolling toward them slowly like a wave. Minutes turned to hours, and before long they reached the halfway mark, a wild clearing within the center of the canyon with a deep scar in the eastern side of the canyon wall that created a sort of cavern, wide enough that they had plenty of room to make camp in and take a brief rest before they trekked the other half. Every moment they had a chance to rest, they'd done so. Twilight was still barely able to walk and needed every moment she could get. The party moved into the crevice and began to take up positions to rest, though Applejack wearily decided it better to stand guard at the entrance to their makeshift camp, noting that with only one entrance, they were essentially trapped if anything should happen. Tock agreed and offered to help scout around nearby, first helping Twilight to a comfortable resting position deeper into the crevice, and the two were soon joined by Flathoof. Tock looked up in dismay as the cloud of darkness loomed overhead, noting that by now it had covered almost all of the canyon, bringing with it a gray mist that blanketed the canyon interior. That there cloud sure is getting thick, Applejack observed. Can't even see the beacon sky thing through it. A sudden loud boom of thunder drew a look from all the others as well. Bugger all, Tock sighed. Just what we needed, a storm. I was hoping we wouldn't have to deal with anything of the sorts, but it would appear my shoddy luck rears its ugly head yet again. A storm? Out here? Applejack scratched her head, looking at Tock. What in the hay's up with that? I thought y'all said there ain't no weather out here. In the wasteland, no, you're right, Tock said. Tock shook her head. But we're not in the wasteland anymore. We're close enough to the coast that natural weather can form again, and we're in a particular hot spot. How else do you think canyons like this would even form? Well, I suppose, Applejack hummed. Flathoof pointed. Well, if anything, this is a good thing, though, isn't it? We can refill our canteens. I wouldn't call a storm over the canyon a good thing. Certainly, but you make a valid point, Tock agreed. We should still get ready to take shelter soon after it starts raining, and have Applejack get a barricade of some kind formed out of the rock here. We're on a slope, so all the rainwater is going to come flowing down, and we don't need to be getting swept up in it. Sorry. And we don't need to be getting swept up in it. Flash floods and all. Terrible business. Sure thing, Applejack nodded as the three of them headed back into the crevice. Glad that the ceiling above was pretty solid. What's taking it so long, though? All this here mist should have cleared out by now. By the way, sorry that my Tock voice is terrible. I have a terrible English accent. Well, all things considered, this will give us more time to rest. I suppose until the storm's over, we may as well just count this as our official camp for the night, Flathoof said with a nod. I wish it wasn't, Tock grumbled. As much as it's helping in the short term, I'm afraid of long-term consequences to resting here and now, since we don't know how long. If we had Rainbow Dash with us, she might be able to clear a path. Please, don't remind us, Applejack snorted angrily. Tock continued. Twilight's getting better, but Lockwood's getting worse. I think the only thing keeping him from worsening any faster is that he's asleep. If that makes any sense. Whatever the curse is, it seems to rely a lot on the subject's fear of its effect to affect them, considering how quickly he started getting worse after his little outburst. It hasn't been doing much but just fester since then, so I figure as long as he's out, the process is slow. It's just a theory, but... my Tock voice is so low. It's just a theory, but it's all I've got. I may not have Twilight's restomancy, but at least I can help some way. And I thank you immensely for that, Tock. Flathoof smiled lightly as he looked over his shoulder at the sleeping Pegasus over on the ground by Twilight. Don't mention it, Tock smiled in return. To be fair, I have Fluttershy to thank for getting that ball rolling in the first place. Sedation spells are hard to work properly, not like proper medicine anesthetics. I'm sure Twilight would have been able to do it by herself if she could, but all we've got as far as real unicorn magic anymore. I'm all we've got as far as real unicorn magic anymore. No offense, Ratty. Ratty flicked her mane. I know I need to brush up a little on these more advanced spells, but at least I'm confident that I can claim to be a master in my own field. So sorry I'm not a magical prodigy like yourself and Twilight. Tock coughed and continued. Well, as I was saying, Fluttershy being able to keep him calm makes it easier for me to keep him down. The other alternative would be to severely weaken him through pain of some kind, so that he'd pass out before I sedated him. I doubt that's a road we all wanted to travel, though, so thank goodness we don't need to consider that. Oh, I just hope we get to Hope's Point soon, Fluttershy sniffed. I'll never be able to forgive myself if something happens to him. Rarity frowned as she squinted through the steadily thickening storm mist, slowly losing the ability to see further than a few feet. This storm sure has brought an awful lot of fog with it. Oh, no, wait, that's Rarity. This storm sure has brought an awful lot of fog with it. Well, storms do that, Tock pointed out. Just a little ocean fog, nothing to worry about. Little fog? Flathoof balked. The rain should have been coming... Oh, wait, what? Who's saying this? Oh, that was Applejack. I guess he said... I don't know, this is all confusing. The rain should be coming sometime after. Applejack's right, though. This is taking a while. There must be a lot of precipitation up there. They all watched as the fog rolled in, thicker and thicker, until it was so thick they could barely even see one another anymore. Well, okay, this isn't normal, Tock said, scratching her head in confusion. No, really, where the bloody hell is the rain? I can barely see a thing, Applejack grumbled as she reached out. Y'all still there? I can't see ya. Of course we're still here. We're talking, aren't we? Rarity noted as she let her horn glow a little to light up their surroundings. Fluttershy, you're still there, right, darling? Oh, yes, the Pegasus gulped as she crept closer to Rarity's light. I'm not really fond of fog like this. I don't like not being able to see. It's awful quiet for a storm, too, Applejack said nervously. Where'd all the thunder go? I know I done heard thunder earlier. Now I ain't hearing anything. Quiet, Tock hummed. She suddenly left in worry. Too quiet. Pinkie Pie! She lit up her arm and walked slowly and walked several paces away in search. Pinkie? Excuse me. Pinkie? Pinkie! Rarity asked as she looked around. When Pinkie didn't respond, she spun around in a panic and flared her horn to match Tock's light. Oh, goodness, you're right. Where's... Blimey! Tock suddenly yelped as she was jerked through the fog by an unseen force. Tock? Hoof exclaimed as she stepped forward. Tock, where are you? Say something! Tock's voice came loud and clear, and they could see her horn flash brilliantly in the fog. Ah! Rarity narrowed her eyes and flared up her horn even brighter, shrouding Applejack and Hoof in a dull blue-gray. Go! She commanded. Follow Tock, quickly! It's them! Another ambush! Applejack's eyes widened and she rushed through the fog at Rarity's command. It didn't take long before she caught sight of Tock's green coat and sweater vest. The unicorn was yowling in pain and groping at something at her neck, though there was nothing there to be seen. Applejack leapt forward and rushed Tock to get whatever was there off of her, bouncing awkwardly away as she struck something at an odd angle that had been behind her. She got to her hoofs in time to see the distortion in the fog shimmer and fade away, and rushed at it again. Like, hey, whoa! Insipid suddenly squealed as she dodged aside. Watch it, jackalope! Insipid! Applejack balked. Wow! Okay, I weren't expecting y'all to be the one doing this here sneaky stuff. Where'd the rest of y'all little gang? Insipid looked offended, genuinely. Okay, that's like so totally rude. Not even a hello. Major unfresh. Pfft. Curie said at least you and Rarity had some, manners. Guess we can, cross you off the list. Cha. I don't really think showing any manners to a mayor known for hurting my friends sounds wrong at all, Applejack sneered. The unicorn shrugged, then flexed a foreleg. Oh man, this is so totally cool. Knick-knack, here comes some pretty buff magic. I am totally surprised and junk. I know she's not, as strong as the boss for sure, but whatever. She's still a big boost. Every little bit helps, Tock! Hoof yelled as he came over and started to help her up. Are you alright? What did that creep do to you? Ugh! Did any pony catch the license plate on that bus? Tock mumbled as she staggered to her hooves. The trio was soon joined by Fluttershy and Rarity. Insipid! Rarity huffed, then suddenly rapidly blinked in surprise. Oh my! What did you do to yourself? You look nice? Fluttershy suggested. Insipid giggled happily, pawing a hoof at her very sleek and sparkling clean blonde mane, twirling around and gazing at her coat's lustrous black sheen. Oh, no, right? Curie let me, borrow her powers for a little bit so I could pull this, trick off in all of you. And so, I thought I'd try... I thought I'd try giving myself a total major fresh makeover. Curie said she liked it. She might let me keep it. Whew, I love being her cherry now. Rarity grit her teeth. Speaking of Curacao, where are your other sisters, and what have you all done with our dear Pinkie Pie? You know you're all responsible for that too. So where is she? Oh, we all know you're responsible for that too. So where is she? Insipid grinned widely and barely resisted the urge to bounce in place. Oh wow, she's dealing with some pony who is just gonna totally thrash her. The boss says that Velvet isn't doing so well against her as she thought she would, or something. I don't know what that means, so she stopped a second and took a step back when Applejack and Rarity each took a step toward her. Okay, so, y'all, kinda giving me these angry looks and junk? She nervously chuckled. Oh, you're not gonna try and gang up on me, are you? Oh man, you guys, that is so mean. Totally not cool. Totally not cool. Seems like a good idea to me. Thanks for suggesting it, Applejack snorted, taking another step forward. And when we're done with y'all, we'll move on to the next one of ya on down the line. We done chased y'all off once. We can do it again. Insipid grinned again, wider than before. Okay, so, like, then that means you're all here, right? 'Cause, like, who's gonna guard your other friends and make sure the boss doesn't do something to her? What's her face? Oh, flashlight, light bulb? Twilight! Rarity cried in a panic. What have you done with her? Insipid pointed her hoof thankfully at Rarity. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Applejack, Flathoof, get back to Twilight and guard her and dear Lockwood from those other ruffians, Rarity commanded. And take Tock with you. Fluttershy and I will handle this uncouth creature. The three of them looked at one another, then instantly turned back and ran in the direction they'd left Twilight and Lockwood in. Okay, so, like, I guess this is like a double rematch. Insipid scratched her head. I mean, I've taken each of you on before, so, like, I don't know, whatever. This won't last long anyway. Cha! Keep quiet, Rarity snapped. Applejack is right. When the two of us are through with you, we can get back there and help them. Last time you tried to divide and conquer, but together we stand strong. Well, like, hey now, take a chill pair, Rarity, Insipid grunted. When did you start getting all, like, barky and stuff? I thought the barky one was Busta Rhyme over... Fluttershy! Fluttershy shouted as Orphanum sprung out of her bracelet. The wolf growled at Insipid, gazing upon her with fierce intensity. I told you not to try and hurt my friends anymore. I also told you I wouldn't hesitate to hurt you if you tried again. Ooh, like I'm so scared and junk. Insipid chuckled. Cherry told me I have nothing to be afraid of from you two wimps. See, 'cause, well, you're like, wimps. Rarity huffed and scuffed a hoof through the dirt. You've threatened me and my friends long enough, Insipid. I'd have thought that after our little encounter, you and your sisters would realize that you're not a match for us anymore. Come, Fluttershy, let's take care of this filth and return to the others. Fluttershy took a step forward and grunted in agreement, then unleashed Orphanum on the black unicorn. Insipid panicked only briefly to duck away from him, turning into a tiger and bouncing away to buy herself some distance. She growled. Okay, like, time to see if that lame-o Slim Jim pony has some real powers. She leapt at Orphanum in turn, claws and teeth bared. Same old tricks? I've got a bigger cat, though. Fluttershy nodded with a grin, watching in anticipation as Orphanum turned into a lion and prepared to catch Insipid as she flew at him. She was astounded to watch Insipid suddenly throw a shield up and deflect Orphanum's large claw away. She landed on the ground in front of him and leapt at him again, swiftly clambering over him in the much smaller shape of a weasel. Often tried to catch her, but she was moving too fast to do much. Fluttershy wailed him to turn into another animal, a smaller one, a fox, but Insipid just as quickly changed her own form to a tiny hummingbird, circling around her head as she tried to beat her wings. Oh, Orphanum, be careful! Fluttershy panicked as the little hummingbird hovered just over Orphanum's head and turned into a bear, landing right on top of him. His eyes flickered as the great weight pushed on top of him, and he tried to transform but couldn't. Rarity grit her teeth and fired her magic at Orphanum, filling him with a pink glow instead of white. He very suddenly began to glow, almost doubling in size, changing into a bear himself as he did so. Like, what the? Insipid growled as she saw a large bear's paw come sweeping at her. She transformed into a mouse to slip between the gaps in his claws, then into a hawk to swoop around and avoid him some more as he frantically swatted around himself, unaffected in agility despite his size due to his magical nature. Come on, Fluttershy! Time to counter her! Rarity bellowed. This is your chance! Fluttershy grit her teeth and consciously willed Orphanum to turn into an eagle that was easily more than twice Insipid's size. He crashed into the smaller bird with astounding force before turning into a gorilla and slamming Insipid into the ground in the palm of his hand. like ow! Insipid groaned as Orphan lifted his hand off of her and bailed it into a fist. Bailed it? Or balled it, I guess. And balled it into a fist, she panicked. Okay, Bess, I don't want to be like a distraction anymore. What? Rarity yelped as she found herself whisked away. Fluttershy stepped forward in a panic as Rarity disappeared. Rarity? Eep! She cried as she too was whisked away. Orphanum leapt toward its master to defend her from the unseen force. Without her in his proximity to command him or to defend, he suddenly flickered away and vanished in a haze as he became too far out of range of the connection to her for him to function. Sorry, my reading's getting weird. Insipid smirked with pride and pranced merrily off into the fog. Pinkie struggled to get out of the grip of something invisible as she was dragged away from her friends, watching them run off into the fog when she heard Tock scream. But whatever was keeping her forelegs pinned behind her back had a very firm hold. Her hind legs were scuffing the ground in an attempt to slow whatever was dragging her away, and though they were doing fairly, it just wasn't enough. She tried to scream out to get their attention, but whatever was dragging her had something over her mouth that kept her from making sound too. Normally, she'd be able to get out of something like this, but she couldn't even see what was happening to try to make sense of it, so that she could make nonsense of it. It wasn't until she was dragged out of earshot of them all, It wasn't until she was dragged out of earshot of them all that she began to see the flashes of magic through the thick fog. Her friends were in trouble, and they needed her help, and she knew only one pony that would try to keep her from her friends. She took a deep breath and tilted her head slightly forward, then bashed it backwards as hard as she could. The thunking sound meant she'd hit something, whatever it was that was dragging her away, causing it to stagger back and lose its grip temporarily, enough for Pinkie to slip out of the hold and bounce away. She chanced to glance back to her friends, but knew that if she tried to get to them and help, then Red Velvet would just give chase anyway and join the fray as well, where she really was a threat. She couldn't risk that, not when keeping the temperamental psychopath occupied was a much better use of her talents. She was confused why Red wasn't casting darkness about, trying to frighten her, even if the other Earth ponies did think it wouldn't work. She was more frightened than ever before, not because of Red, of course, but because her friends were in danger again, and worse, she had no idea where Rainbow Dash was. She shook her head of those thoughts, knowing she needed to focus on keeping her fears buried to keep Red from feeding on them and becoming stronger. Show yourself, Red! There's no point in hiding from me! I know you're there! Pinkie challenged. Come on, bring it! We can start again at round 1. I'll kick your butt all over this canyon, just as I did back in the field. A laugh from the frog made her raise an eyebrow, unable to understand why it sounded like it did. That wasn't Red Velvet's typical laugh. Ooh la la, you think that I would assign her to and try to handle you again, Mademoiselle Pie? Cedro? Pinkie frantically looked around her to find the source of the laugh, knowing now that it definitely wasn't Red Velvet. She remembered Rarity saying that Curacao could change her coat colors to blend into their surroundings. She could be hiding anywhere. Oh, tis, mon ami. You want to oppose me? You cannot eat what you cannot see. Ne se passe? Stop messing around! Pinkie demanded, still frantically looking about and shuffling around to avoid being snuck up on. That's my job! You want to tussle with the pink? You'd better think again! Man, I keep messing that up. You are trying to find me? Oui? Am I over here? Curaçao's voice laughed from somewhere to Pinkie's left. Pinkie swiveled around and let loose a rough roundhouse kick in that direction, but struck nothing but air and nearly tripped over herself. Or am I over here? This time the voice came from right behind Pinkie. She deftly leapt into a backflip and spun around with another kick. Nothing. This time she did trip and frantically tried to keep her balance. Grrr! Quit hiding! If you're gonna fight me, do it like a mare! Pinkie called out, still looking around herself. Rarity had said with a keen eye she could spot Curaçao's outline and find her, so she tried to calm down and look more slowly, using the taunt and to try and buy some time or goad the other pony into revealing herself. Curaçao's Curaçao's voice sighed with disappointment. Tisk. If you think I'm going to fall for the same tricks that Avicwing does, you are sadly mistaken, vois-tu? Are you trying to emulate your dear Shari? Oh, that reminds me. Where is Mademoiselle Dash anyway? Did she abandon you? Tresse? Portore, at least? Pinkie glared in the last direction she heard the voice from, then removed her helmet and reached into her poofy hair and pulled out a set of goggles. Curacao remained silent and watched in bizarre awe as she watched Pinkie put them on and click a switch on the side that made the lenses grow a bright green before Pinkie began to look around herself. Ah, and the toys come out. Tell me then, what are those supposed to be? Curaçao's voice asked with genuine curiosity. Pinkie smirked and turned, then confidently pointed in Curaçao's direction. Aha! Gotcha! Curaçao panicked and leapt aside to let Pinkie rush Curaçao panicked and leapt aside to avoid Pinkie rushing at her with a flurry of kicks and punches. What's the matter? She began to dodge and bob and weave to avoid Pinkie's rapid-fire assault, then grit her teeth and went to sweep Pinkie's leg. Pinkie deftly flipped again and ended up behind Curaçao's planned escape route. Curaçao was astounded that somehow, during the mid-air flip, Pinkie had once again changed her outfit, now dressed in a sleek black, lightly armored suit that covered her entire body and even her face, minus her eyes and the goggles over them, equipped with all assortments of pouches of various sizes. The goggles had changed too, now sporting a third eye in the center. Pinkie now was pointing what looked like some sort of tube-shaped, shoulder-mounted weapon pointed directly at Curaçao. You think you're sneaky? You haven't met sneaky, Pinkie declared brightly. Agent Pink is on the case. Where did you get all that marvelous equipment? Curaçao's voice cooed as she uncloaked herself. Though that suit does not go well with a pony of your figure, of course. If I may be blunt, it makes you, how would Shari say it? It makes your butt look big. Did I get that right? Pinkie waggled her head. Oh, no, you didn't, girl! You best check yourself before you're wrecking yourself, getting all up in my business! She snorted, waving a hoof back and forth in front of her face with inexplicable snaps. Snap, 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 snap! So we're back to the taunting game, huh? Well, just so you know, I learned from the best. Oh, I am eager with a tent, Curaçao chuckled. You think I've got a big butt? Well, your butt is all fancy and wimpy. You're fancy-smancy, limpy-wimpy butt face. Curaçao remained silent and mouthed the words back to herself. Fancy-smancy, wimpy, limpy butt face? She shook her head in disbelief. That was just terrible. Your face is terrible, Pinkie scoffed. Curaçao waved a hoof dismissively. Clearly a master of the art of, how would you put it, the dozens, oui? But, pardon-moi. I was asking you where you got jealous. I have an hobby, vous two. I like to know how everybody's powers work, so that when the time comes, je pourrai escort mon sabot. Yours, however, is strange to me. How do you have such wonderful abilities? Pinkie continued to pace around Curaçao, keeping her guard up despite seeing the other earth pony just standing calmly there, glowing a bright green in the center of her vision. It was strange that this pony was so calm despite everything. Rarity had said that even in the heart of fighting against her, Curaçao continued to maintain the same awkward calm, professional attitude while in the midst of a brawl. Only when she was angry did she seem to drop it, but Pinkie was at a loss for how to make her angry. Not that she wanted to, really. Rarity had said that the blue earth pony was, when in rage, generally scary. What struck Pinkie the most was that Curaçao was actually a legitimate threat. In this fog she could move around unseen, all things considered. The other earth pony was dangerous if she were to be allowed near her friends, so when it came down to it, Pinkie knew that by keeping her occupied here, she was harmless. If that meant leaving her friends to deal with Curaçao's allies in order to prevent Curaçao herself from joining in and distracting them, so be it. So she humored her. Well, okay, but but it's hard to explain, really. Let's just keep it simple, so I can get back to kicking your butt and then get back to helping my friends. Sound good? Just acceptable. Curacao nodded. Pinkie then started, matter-of-factly, unabashedly, completely, genuinely, and seriously, and without even the slightest hint of attempting to joke around. I can do whatever I want. There, happy? Whatever you want, Curacao asked, raising an eyebrow. Whatever I want. Still no trace of a giggle or a laugh. No smile, no grin. Just a stone look. You can pull off these toys out of nowhere? Yep! Unfathomably serious. Curacao shook her head in utter disbelief. This must be unforced. That kind of magic is difficult even pour te capitan. Even pour ma capitan. You cannot make something from nothing, not without owning quadruple Sorry, my French is terrible because I don't know any other than LOZ, which is Duck 2, but never mind that. And un how would you say, un on your head voice? I'm gonna have to look that up later. What? Pinkie said somewhat nervously, tilting her head. But I do it all the time. You've seen it. Red's seen it. Every pony's seen it. Curacao let out a groan and shook her head. No wonder Velvet is just such terrible with you. You're breaking the rules of magic. Stress impossible. This magic of yours. Oh yeah? Pinkie chortled. Watch this. She braced herself and aimed her weapon directly at Curacao and squeezed the trigger. Click. Curacao watched in suspense, as nothing even remotely interesting happened. What? Is that thing supposed to do something? Click, 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 click. Pinkie looked at her weapon nervously, clicking the trigger incessantly, even as she looked down the barrel. Click, 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 click. Nothing, even though she had purposefully aimed it at herself and fired. A classic joke. It still wasn't working. What the hey? Oh, come on! This was supposed to be a bang and then a boom! And then you were supposed to get knocked around and stuff. This isn't supposed to happen. She was doing her best not to let anything slip. Curacao had accidentally said exactly the wrong thing, but so long as she didn't know why her shoulder-mounted, heat-seeking BFRL 3000 wasn't working, then she could still have an advantage. Curacao's laugh was loud and boastful. My, you are having trouble, Mademoiselle Pinkie. Perhaps it broke when you sat on it. Pinkie glared and chucked the useless equipment aside. Okay, fine, no rocket launchers, no problem. I'm still a master of CQC. Prepare to be thrashed, fancy pants. Oh, you are the master of the melee? I take it that Reddy did not give you any details on what I did to her. Excuse me. Oh, she told me plenty, Pinkie grinned, getting into a fighting stance. But that's Rarity, not me. No offense to her, but she's not exactly what I'd call a combat master. Well, except for that one time she knew karate. But I think that was a one-episode only gag. Whatever, time to get to business. Let's get some tunes rolling, and we can get started! Pinkie reached into one of the mini pouches on her suit and pulled out her little music player and began busily fumbling with it. She brightened when she found just what she was looking for, pressed a button, then eagerly bounced in place as the music started to play. Perfect! Pinkie smiled. Okay, fancy pants, it's show... Burk! Curacao snorted, turning her nose up. Just go to musica is no afro. You don't like it? Pinkie pouted. No. C'est trop grossier. Don't you have something more de grande classe? Classy? Classy? Pinkie blinked. Why would you want something classy? This is straight up brawl, missy. We don't... There is such a thing as classy fight music. Non est pas? Curacao said pointedly. But I guess if you don't have any, then I will just mondo make do with cha. What? Pfft, I have classy fighting music. Pinkie snorted. Check this out. and Pinkie pushed the button on the little gadget, and suddenly different music started playing from nowhere yet again. Oh! Well, let me try again. That's not attendance. Curacao held up a hoof and briefly considered. Ah, it is good. That is how would you say more like it? Pinkie Pie made a face. Oh, Celeste, you can't be serious, really? This isn't fighting music. Non. But je l'ami. Curacao pouted. Fine. I guess grand orchestral fits. Pinkie rolled her eyes and got back into her fighting stance again. Well, whatever. Long story short, I warn you. And she stared straight ahead as her voice dropped 2 whole octaves. I know kung fu. Curacao smirked and settled into her own combat stance. Montrez-moi. Pinkie lunged forward, hind legs first, rapidly kicking her legs in a bicycle kick. Curacao ducked beneath Pinkie and grabbed her legs as she whizzed by her head, shifting her weight and flinging Pinkie over her and slamming her into the ground as the blue pony moved to pin her. Pinkie kicked her legs, sending Curacao flying over her. The blue earth pony landed perfectly on all fours and snickered again as Pinkie worked her way back to her hoofs. Ugh! Kung Fu! Where did you learn your technique? A cereal box? Ugh! Hey! It was an excellent source of 15 vitamins and minerals, Pinkie complained as she rubbed her hands. Ow! You're stronger than you look! You're too easy to read, Curacao laughed. Those moves of yours, they are too flashy, too predictable. You're, how you say, the power player? That may work against Red Velvet, as she plays the same way. Mizo, I have, how would you say, fancy. Technique s'il te plaît. Curacao smiled as she shifted back into her shroud of invisibility. Come on, then. Let us continue the game, oui? Applejack and Flathoof, with an exhausted and limping Tock behind them, came running toward Twilight and Lockwood's previous location, where the fog was rapidly disappearing and making it significantly easier to see. To their dismay, Twilight was not there. No! Applejack panicked as she frantically looked around the crevice. No! Where is she? Twilight! Twilight! I can't feel her anywhere nearby. Lockwood. Hey, bud, are you alright? Flathoof stammered as he approached the Pegasus, who was thankfully still fast asleep. Phew. Blast it, where did they... Look out! Tock called from just outside the crevice, raising a barrier around herself as fast as she could. Flathoof barely reacted in time to avoid a fireball as it exploded near him, and Lockwood, pulling the Pegasus with him and rolling together some ways away and hitting the canyon wall. Ah! Lockwood winced as he... Oh, that was Lockwood. Ah! Lockwood winced as he started awake. Jeez, can't you even wake me up peacefully? Damn it, Flathoof yelled as he got to his hooves and stood defensively near Lockwood. Stay down, buddy. We've got company. Oh, wonderful, Lockwood grumbled. He suddenly perked up in a panic. Fluttershy. Where's Fluttershy? She's with Rarity. Now stay calm. Stay down, Flathoof hissed. Just keep behind me, okay? Man, can't believe I missed. Oh, that's happening. Man, can't believe I missed. Guess I'm off my game. Havocwing snickered as she circled around up above them and charged up another fireball. Oh well, I won't miss this time. Eat it, losers! The blast screeched toward the two, and Flathoof prepared to shield Lockwood from the burst with his body. It exploded several feet before it got to them, deflected by a well-aimed boulder that had been chucked into the line of fire. The fire and rocks sprayed about, so Flathoof still had to shield Lockwood from most of it. Oh, for buck's sake, come on! Havoc angrily yelled, charging up another set of fireballs. I'm getting tired of all this! Hey, Featherbrain, heads up! Applejack called as she kicked another rock in the Pegasus' direction. Havocwing lazily swerved to avoid it, and grinned wide as she looked back down at ground level. Oh, look who thinks she's a big mare now! Pretty brave of you to be kicking rocks around like some sort of big shot ground pounder! Applejack called back. Pretty brave of y'all to be shooting fireballs around like some sort of hot shot cloud fluffer. Havoc Wing sneered. You want to play, huh? Well, the boss wants me to deal with you. Guess you get to be dealt with. Bring it on. Applejack turned quickly to Flathoof and Lockwood. You two keep safe, you hear? Tock. Over here. No telling where the others are. The group are. Applejack galloped off and left the three of them alone, thankfully drawing Havoc Wing's fire away from them. Tock breathed a sigh of modest relief. We need to get to cover, boys. Flathoof, take Lockwood over and bugger, down. Flathoof chanced to glance sideways and nearly reacted in time to duck under a swinging red blade that slashed into the wall of rock behind them, dribbling debris and splashing blood down on them. No fair! Red Velvet complained as she stepped out of the fog. I almost got myself a 3-for-1 special on pony heads. One of every variety, even. A total bargain. All wasted. Oh well. Guess I'll just have to do Guess I'll just have to do this the old-fashioned way. Which is fine, really. I like old-fashioned, she added with a wicked chuckle. This is bad. Tock gulped, letting her horn glow. The glow was horribly dim, and she was visibly straining with even attempting this. This is really, really bad. I'll handle this, Flathoof said firmly, stepping forward and cracking his neck. Tock and Lockwood watched him in disbelief, jaws agape. She spoke first. You're joking, right? Please tell me you're joking, because then I can tell you you're not. Oh, no, that's Tock. You're joking, right? Please tell me you're joking, because then I can tell you you're not bloody funny. Oh, no, ooh, well now, this looks fun, Velvet said with a wide, fanged grin. Finally, a target I'm allowed to use lethal force against. It's been ages since I've had another pony, so you have no idea how much I'm going to enjoy this, big guy. Let's see if you can last longer than the last stallion I enjoyed. I play nice, I swear. Oh, I suppose it's only fair I let you have some last words with your friends. That just makes it all the more sad for them when you die. And I drink that stuff up, too. You are crazy, Flathoof, Lockwood explained. She'll kill you! She's not getting past me, Flathoof snorted as he stepped forward again, pride and confidence in his stride. Rarity's boost magic flows through me, and I'm going to use it to do what I should have been doing since this whole damn journey started. I'm going to keep you all safe. I'm going to protect you. I appreciate the bravado, Flathoof, Tock hesitantly interjected. If you're trying to impress all the mares here, or trying to make amends for something you may or may not have done, this is not the best way to do it. There is a difference, a huge difference between brave and bleedin' daft. You'll see, Tock, Flathoof smiled. I'll be okay. You just stick with Lockwood, make sure nothing happens to him. All right? All done? Velvet smiled eagerly. Good. That means we can get to it then. Say, has any pony ever told you you were just a gorgeous hunk of meat? You're so thick, so juicy. Beefcake? I mean, I know you're all starving out here and stuff, so it's kind of lucky, I guess, that you're all still so damn buff. If you're doing... Sorry. If we're done with this, let's just start, shall we? Flathoof said bravely, planting his hooves and standing tall and firm. We'll see what my power looks like when it's been given a little oomph. I'm looking forward to it. Velvet clicked her tongue, shrugged, and lashed out at him with a tendril of blood that moved faster than he could see. It wrapped around his neck and dragged him toward her at a purposefully slow pace. He struggled to get out of the grip for a few moments. Before grinning and planting his hooves firmly on the ground, he stopped moving, no matter how hard she tugged. "One of the first things I learned when it came to protecting those important to me is to stand your ground," he explained.
Ah, isn't that cute? So you think you're tough then?
Velvet grinned.
Alley-oop!
Flathoof yelped as he was tugged upward and then sharply slammed back down, then yanked over to her with a jerking motion. She stopped him in midair and tenderly ran her hooves along his chest.
Ooh, tender, she breathed. You've got a lot of meat on you, beefcakes. I can't wait.
She brought him down to her level and whispered into her ears.
I want you inside me.
If you're trying to creep me out, Flathoof shivered. It's working. Velvet pouted.
Aw, not even in bite-sized little bits. What did you think I meant, You're dirty. I like that.
Man, Red Velvet is just so creepy. She shrugged, then lashed the tendril out again, moving it like a whip and flinging Flathoof into the nearest wall. He crashed into it hard, sending debris falling about. Velvet let her tendril slink away as Flathoof fell to the ground and was covered by rocks that continued to fall from the cannon wall.
Tisk! Not quite the stamina I would have liked, Velvet said with a dejected sigh. Good stallions are so hard to find these days, right guys?
She added, leering at Tock and Lockwood.
Okay then, which of you is next? The other stallion? Lockwood, was it? I don't know. A bit stringy.
Oh, geez, she's looking right at me, isn't she? Lockwood shivered. Her nose twitched.
Now that I think about it, by the stars, what is that smell? Is that coming from you? It's like blood, mixed with fear. Normally that would be downright delectable, but I don't know, something seems off. The blood is all rotten or something. Ew!
The fear is alright, though, just strange.
Tainted. Whatever it is, it's got some decent kick to it. And you know what?
She paused, legitimately thoughtful.
Once you get used to it, it's kind of nice. Spicy. Piquant, maybe. Maybe I'll keep you around as, like, seasoning. Grind up a bit of you at a time for the extra zest.
And she held out both hooves, presenting the idea.
Like Fear Light. Half the calories, all the taste. If I weren't the only member of my target demographic, I'd be a marketing genius. I dare say I'd make a killing. Whew, I'm going to write that down. That's a keeper.
She wiped a black tear from her eye.
I don't know if any of what she just said is something I should be scared of or really scared of,
Lockwood nervously admitted. Red Velvet startled at his voice and looked up at Tock hungrily.
And please say you're the main course, Tock. I mean, I prefer stallions, but I'm not picky. I get my fill either way. Oh, and I've learned, and I'll earn so many brownie points with Daddy if I bring him your head. That's the only part I'll save, of course. Well, unless I get full, then I guess I'll take a doggy bag to go.
Tock gulped and stepped forward, still limping.
Right. Well, wish me good luck, she chuckled nervously, looking at Lockwood.
Luck. Good. Right. Lockwood frowned. Yes, that served you well over the last 2 weeks. Red leapt forward, blade spinning and twirling about. Tock prepared to place up a barrier to defend herself. She was surprised when Red was sent flying as Flathoof ran into her from the side. She was sent rolling until she hit the canyon wall. I'm not done yet, Miss Velvet, Flathoof snorted, scraping a hoof roughly through the dirt. I said I'd protect my friends, and I meant that from the bottom of my heart. Round 2, let's go. I'm just getting started.
Oh, I like you, big boy. Velvet snickered as she shook dirt and dust from herself. You got spunk. You got life. I'm going to enjoy breaking you in half. She charged at him again, lashing a blade forward. He rolled to avoid it and rushed at her, bashing her in the face with his shoulder and knocking her back a little. She was unfazed and latched onto his torso again with her tendrils, lifting him into the air and slamming him down again as hard as she could. She grinned widely as the dust cleared, then watched in curiosity and anger as he started to stand again. As he started to stand again, okay. What gives? She scratched her head. That should have broken your spine. Where's the delicious snap? Flathoof smiled as he stood upright, a dim blue glow in his eyes. Like I told Lockwood, super strength Like I told Lockwood, super strength includes increased endurance and toughness. You can't break me. I am a shield. That hurt like hell, though. He winced. So you can at least still feel pain, Velvet grinned widely. That's good enough for me. I can use a new boy toy. Velvet tightened her grip on his torso and flung him at the nearest wall, chasing in after him with more tendrils flailing about. Tock watched in morbid fascination as Flathoof took the brunt of the assault and screamed in pain, but was not physically taking much damage at all. He can't handle her by himself, she grimaced. She's just playing with him. She's getting a kick of seeing how much he can take. You need to help him, Lockwood suggested weakly. I'm still too drained from that bloody moronic blonde, Tock frowned. I'd be more harm than help if I tried to get in there now. Let's see if there's something we can do about that. Lockwood smiled. He touched a hoof to the nearest part of her as he could reach, and she shot an angry look back at him. Oi! What's your hooves there? She suddenly brightened as the feeling of weakness she was feeling ebbed away. Oh, wait. You shouldn't be doing this in your condition, she pointed, attempting to jerk away. Lockwood gave her a grim smile. I couldn't take it, he breathed. Besides, I might pass out from all the pain. Eventually, then I can get back to sleep. Tock continued to try and stop him from doing what he was doing, but her own exhaustion was keeping her from moving, and his grip felt like a magnet. The pain in her leg and the weakness in her body began to melt away slowly, but her anguish was now emotional as she watched Lockwood's face contort to match the new sensation he was feeling. After a moment or two, Lockwood's eyes glazed over and Tock frantically channeled a sedation spell to get him back to sleep painlessly. Sleep well, you nutter, Tock sighed. Right. Here goes. She galloped over to the side of Flathoof and Velvet's battle, where the mare was literally swinging Flathoof around like a yo-yo and slamming him into the ground, the canyon walls, and anything else she could find. Tock fired a bolt of magic at her, which exploded in a shower of sparks against the back of her head, causing her to lose her focus, stumble, and drop Flathoof, who fell somewhat nearby. Tock ran to him and crouched at his side. He was still surprisingly intact despite everything, but his magic seemed to be wearing thin, as bruises and scrapes and cuts were beginning to show. You all right there, Flathoof? Tock asked. He weakly nodded and stood upright. I've had worse. Where's Lockwood? Sleeping. Let's just keep it simple and leave it at that, eh? Pfft, can't they ever enjoy a little fun without getting interrupted by some pony trying to be a hero? Velvet sneered as she turned to face them. Really? I mean, really? I was willing to save you for later, Tock. But I guess if you're so eager to enter the fray, I'll accommodate you. 2 against 1 now, psycho, Tock snorted. Odds are improved, and that's enough to hold you off until some pony else finishes up your sisters and comes to our aid. Ah, you're so cute when you're brave.
Velvet snickered as she approached them, blades twirling about. So, you think you're some sort of tough cookie, huh? I'll admit that infuriating Pinkie Pie may have gotten on my nerves with all her bizarro antics, but at least she puts up a good fight. What do you two think you're going to do? Beefcake here looks like he's losing his touch, and you, TikTok, you're very unfortunately, she lashed out a tendril at her, not invincible. TikTok panicked and placed up a barrier, which deflected the tendril just barely. She fought to keep it up around her and Flathoof as Velvet continued to pound away at it with all assortment of bloody weaponry. Velvet's grin widened more and more as TikTok's shield seemed to be wearing thinner and thinner, forcing Flathoof to rush out of it in an attempt to distract her. She laughed and swatted him aside. Oops! Nice try! Velvet grinned at TikTok again, her smile massive and fanged. Her eyes were beginning to turn red again. You really should be glad I've held back this long. There's a lot of fear in the air around here, TikTok. I can smell it. I can taste it. Do you want to know what you're all the most afraid of? TikTok's eyes widened in shock as Velvet's tendrils actually grabbed her barrier and threw it, with her inside, at the nearest wall. She bounced around inside and lost her focus, dropping the shield and shuffling away in a panic. I'm gonna just drink this all up before I kill you, Velvet chortled. I have no idea how long it's been since I've been able to feel this good. I can put off the murdering and the blood and the death and all that fun stuff until later. At least until I can get off on all this. Flathoof charged in an attempt to knock her aside. She caught him inches away and threw him over her head, sending him flying right at TikTok. The two of them tumbled and rolled and hit the cannon wall again. Now then, where was I? Oh yes, your darkest fears. I can see them, you know. I can hear them buzzing around in my head like little voices whispering in my ear, telling you what to do. I don't even really need their help either, but it's fun to listen to their anguish. She paused for a moment, closing her eyes, apparently listening intently. You're all desperate right now. You're weak from hunger and exhaustion and lack of morale. Your hearts ache from the abandonment of a friend. Your mind's tired from lack of sleep. Your soul's drained and your spirit's broken, and makes it so easy to pry into the deepest little recesses of your existence to see what you feared the most. Do you want to hear what they are? She lashed out a tendril and grabbed onto Flathoof first, pulling him to her and looking him in the eyes. Her own eyes began to turn red, her pupils black, and she eagerly licked off the blood that was running across his face from his forehead. You do taste good, big guy. A nice little sample for now. I'll save the rest for you for later. She stroked his face with her tendril and smiled wickedly. You're most afraid of your friends, of course. Afraid that you can't protect them? That your very existence and everything you make that makes you you is just a lie? That you'll all fail and another one will die, and another, and another! Her tendrils tightened around his neck and pulled him closer. And with a massive grin, she whispered in his ear, Let me assure you, they'll all die. They'll all die! And it will all be your fault! He went through the most intense pain he'd ever known as visions flooded his mind, vivid and real. The sight of Lockwood moving about against his will as one of those monstrous things, impaled, filled his remorse. TikTok and Twilight and Fluttershy and all the others mutilated and tossed carelessly in a pile by long flowing streams of red, sickening liquid. Applejack, the last of them, fighting off an unseen foe that was very suddenly losing as a great blade of red and black sliced through her solid rock body, cracking it apart and grinding her into dust. It's all your fault! She breathed again. She then lashed another tendril out and grabbed TikTok, pulling her to her without even tilting her head. She rotated the unicorn to be in front of her and grinned widely, her eyes growing redder by the second. You're afraid of something. No. Some pony? Oh, curious. It's not me. I am almost disappointed. In myself, really, more than you. Let's see who this creature is, then. Excuse me. Tock screamed in agony as the visions flooded her, making her see her nightmares come to life in front of her eyes as Velvet's face began to melt and wrap into something different. Pink was slowly replaced by black, and only the eyes remained changed red as before. The face bared its teeth, rotten and yellow and green, dripping with a black vial. The rest of her body began to warp to turning all to black, large sections of flesh suddenly bursting outward and leaking blood and guts without the face reacting at all. Great wings spread from its back, silver, metal wings. A Pegasus, a stallion judging from the build. He smiled at her and leaned in. Tock squirmed and tried to get away as his teeth grazed her ear. Hello again, Chronomancer. And goodbye. She screamed in pain again as it brought one of the silver rings around and sliced it through her. Reality melted back into view, and Velvet bared the same sinister, gleeful grin. Ah, he's cute, she cooed, her eyes now filled with red and black and beginning to seep a black ooze again. My kind of guy. Got that sleek body tone, a gorgeous smile, dreamy eyes. Oh, and there's the whole likes to murder thing. We'd be perfect for each other. An old boyfriend, Tock? He looks so happy to see you die. She moaned, licking her lips. Oh, this is delicious! And it's so easy to see! So easy to manipulate! I wonder what the others are all afraid of. Who wants to find out? Pinkie snorted and continued to follow Curacao with her goggles after getting back to her hooves again. You might be sorta, well, no, really tough, but I'm still standing and I've still got fight in me, and if you're going to try and hide from me, Fancy Pants, you've got another thing coming, so stop trying, she laughed, tapping her goggles. Curacao chuckled. So, you can still see me? Ah, that's the trick. Those goggles, they are the key? Only the best in modern technology, Pinkie proudly pointed. Another toy you pulled from your bag of tricks, then. I said already that it's right here. You can see it, Pinkie yelled, exasperated. Seeing is believing, you know. Just drop it and let me thrash you, okay? You are really throwing me off my groove here. You are awfully defensive about your toys. She let her mouth curl up in a sly grin. Tell me so. If you can do anything, then what is stopping you from taking your friends home right now? That's none of your beeswax there, frou-frou, Pinkie said aggressively. Curacao tutted. Oh, such a shame this is. You say you can do anything, and yet you cannot do this? Was that a lie then? I ain't lying, Pinkie said, shaking her hoof. I may not be honest, Applejack, but I'm no dirty liar. I think you are lying, mon ami, Curacao smirked. After all, if you can do anything, then there must be a reason why you can't just solve all their problems, right? This. Second, I wonder why it is that you can't. Well, Velvet said that your powers rely on your moon, no? Maybe that has something to do with it. Pinkie cracked her neck and got back into a fighting stance. That's right! Like I told that weirdo, if it makes me happy, I can do anything. And you know what? Right now, kicking my butt, as you say, would make you happy. That is the problem. I have mon ami, wouldn't get across the sea, and to your own make you happy. I mean, it's only logical, and as much as I know what you do defies all logic. It still makes no sense that you would willingly stay here right now with tres companions in danger. Pinkie remained resolute.
I said it's none of your beeswax! If you can't accept that, then you'd better quit yapping and get ready to throw down!
Curacao tapped a hoof on her chin and thought, I wonder if there is more to your magic than just being happy then. And you are so defensive of me, questioning your magic. Her mouth suddenly curled up into another smug grin. Ah, oui, that is it. That is it. Ooh la la, très magnifique. Pinkie got aggravated. Excuse me. Pinkie got aggravated with Curacao stalling.
Enough chit-chat! Let's get the show back to moving!
Curacao shook her head and gave Pinkie a look of sincere seriousness. You... You can still see me then? She asked. Pinkie raised an eyebrow.
Heck yeah, and I'm...
Curacao grinned wide. I don't believe you. Pinkie stopped and blinked in confusion.
What?
I said I don't believe you. Curacao repeated very simply. I don't think you can really see me. It's impossible. I am invisible, and you cannot see what is invisible. Therefore, you cannot see me, and therefore, you are lying.
Whoa! Whoa! Hey, rough accusation there, Missy! Pinkie said in disbelief. I just told you I'm no liar. I mean, really, I already went over it. It's the goggles that let me...
So goggles do nothing, you cannot see me. Très simple. Pinkie grit her teeth and started to step forward again, when suddenly her vision became all staticky, and the goggles began to spark and sizzle. She frantically took them off and dropped them as they somehow caught fire. She looked at them in panic, then back to where she'd last seen Curacao, then back to the goggles, then back up knowing full well she couldn't see her anymore.
Uh-oh!
She was suddenly tackled from the side and slammed into the ground. She got up and got ready for more, only to be greeted with a very surprisingly strong hoof right to the stomach, knocking the wind out of her. Curacao swept Pinkie's leg and dropped down to land on Pinkie's stomach again. She gripped at where she felt her opponent and threw Curacao aside before scrambling away. She felt a great weight pin her to the ground, and despite attempts of swing her hooves around and knock Curacao off, put each flare... That's right. Let me start over. She felt a great weight pin her to the ground, and despite attempting to swing her hooves around to knock Curacao off, she put each flare was blocked and subdued until Pinkie was totally pinned to her stomach, hooves held behind her. Curacao laughed and pushed a hoof to Pinkie's throat. So that is the secret. You can't just do anything. You can do what you want, so long as there is a suspension of disbelief. But if that suspension were to be disparate, she laughed again. Just terrible. That if only Velvet was able to focus, she'd have beaten you long ago. The weakness of anger and temper. That is why I am called professional. Professionale. Pinkie pushed Curacao off and tried to crawl away, only to have the invisible pony leap onto her back and knock her into another stronghold, one hoof around her throat and the other tugging her hair. Now, what was that about you being the master of the melee?
Get off of me!
Pinkie choked as she struggled to release herself. It would seem that without your toys you are... How would you say worthless? Curacao chortled.
I'll show you! Wow!
Pinkie cried as a red tendril reached out through the fog and grabbed her by the tail.
What's the...
Curacao started. Her statement was interrupted, and she was knocked aside as the tendril yanked Pinkie out of her own grip and dragged her screaming into the fog. Curacao shook her head and got to her hooves. Ah, that red velvet. What? Red velvet? What are you up to?
Come on, hillbilly! Is that all you've got? My grandmother could do better, and I don't even know my grandmother!
Havoc-Wing snickered as she twirled and dodged rocks that were flying at her.
This is a breeze compared to dodging lightning. Yawn. Yeah, well, if I'm born ya, maybe y'all should come down here and see how y'all fare against me, mare to mare. Applejack called as she kicked rock after rock upwards at her target, disappointed that she couldn't even get a bead on the much smaller, much faster, much more agile Pegasus. She actually found herself wishing she was fighting Grayscale Force again. Where was she anyway? Nope, not falling for that stuff this time. Havocwing shook her head. Gray told me you're a tough customer in Hoof to Hoof, and I'm not dumb enough to give up my only advantage. Try harder, farm girl. I can keep this up all night. So y'all just a big old chicken, is that what y'all saying? Applejack taunted. 'Cause sure as shooting, that's what I'm hearing out of that big old mouth of yours. Havocwing stopped in midair and angrily spat down on Applejack. If you want to keep your head down there, Hick, you'd better keep your damn mouth shut. I'm no chicken, and you know it. Just ask your friend Rainbow. Oh, wait, you can't. All I'm hearing up there is chicken. Applejack cackled as she shook her rear at Havocwing. Havocwing sneered and charged up a fireball. That's it! You are just begging for trouble, aren't you, ground pounder? I was just going to be nice and let you just waste your time down there trying to hit me. But if you really want a piece of the action, then be my guest. Lesson 30, if somebody thinks they're tough, then get a little rough. She launched a volley of blasts downwards in Applejack's direction, making the earth pony abandon her attempts at kicking rocks and hastily moving to avoid getting hit. The volley chased her around in circles. Applejack silently thanked the earth for being kind enough to allow her to move without much friction, giving her a much-needed speed boost. She could tell Havoc was aiming directly at her, not leading her shots. Leading her shots, and chalked it up again to the fact that they were supposed to be using non-lethal tactics. Shared Rainbow's recollection of the other Pegasus' accuracy with those blasts. Run, 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 little earthworm! That's all you can do is run! Who's laughing now, Crapplejack? Havoc mocked as she aimed her volley to force Applejack to change directions. Check it out! You can't even touch me while I've got you running around. Guess having to stay still for your little rock-kicking trick sucks, huh? Maybe you should have thought of that before you tussled with the best damn fighter this side of the pandemonium. Applejack grit her teeth and dodged another volley of leading shots by opting to stop moving completely, taking the split-second opportunity to summon up another large chunk of rock, which she spun and kicked in Havoc's direction. Havoc yelped and swerved out of the way, giving Applejack enough time to summon up several smaller ones that she started kicking her way again. Havoc dodged these easily too, letting them smash against the canyon wall just behind her. Like I said, Havoc laughed as she charged up another volley. Sucks that you have to stay. Oh! Applejack smirked as one of the rocks she'd kicked came flying back toward her and locked itself in place around her alongside several others, having struck Havocwing in the back of the head as it whizzed by. Havoc panicked and swerved to avoid the rest of the rocks coming back from the other direction, then watched in surprise as Applejack started kicking another volley at her. What the? Hey! That's a load of horse apples! I call cheating! Havocwing yelled as she frantically started dodging rocks from both directions, moving slowly towards the center of the canyon to give herself some distance. Cheating, huh? Fair's fair, featherbrain, Applejack mocked back. If y'all don't want to come down here and fight me like a mare, I guess I'm just going to have to teach y'all a lesson. Don't underestimate Applejack, or... She thought for a second, then brightened and finished. Y'all get smacked. See, 'tain't so hard to this here riding business. The barrage was coming too fast now for Havocwing to avoid just by dexterity alone. Even her dexterity. She angrily growled as she was forced to use her fireballs to deflect rocks away. Explosions surrounding her in the air as she moved to and fro. Fire bursts of flame this way and that. Applejack chuckled from underneath her, as now the rocks were all flying back and forth almost entirely of their own accord. Well now, how'd y'all like them apples?
Y'all really are a piece of cake to handle, just like Dash said you were. Applejack laughed. Guess maybe next time you won't be such a dang chicken. Havoc wing suddenly exploded in a fierce blast of fire that spread outward like a bomb. Enough force in the blast that Applejack was knocked off balance and had to shield her ears. A screaming ball of fire rocketed upwards. A screaming ball of fire rocketed upwards out of the explosion, twirled around and dove toward the ground, white hot and moving like lightning.
I am not a chicken!
Applejack panicked. Havoc was coming in too fast for her to dodge. She attempted to move away, but was fiercely tackled and swept up into the air, knocking her hat clean off. She hissed in pain as Havoc's body seemed to be generating intense heat all by itself. Her body began to glow white as she streaked through the canyon, her eyes red with rage and mane and tail ablaze. Havoc Wing let loose a fierce blast of explosive force, sending Applejack careening toward the ground and herself spinning backwards from the force of the explosion. Applejack slammed into the earth with all the force of a bullet and rolled for several yards before slamming into the canyon wall. The only thing that had kept her from cracking apart was that she'd called to the earth to cushion her fall, but that didn't stop it from hurting like hell. She shook off her delirium and burst out of the rock that had crashed on top of her, then kicked it all as quickly as she could with all her might at a rapid approaching Havoc Wing. Havoc twirled and dodged the rock volley and fired her own volley of explosion at Applejack. And the blast... what's wrong with me today? I'm just yawning so much. Sorry. Havoc twirled and dodged the rock volley and fired her own volley of explosions at Applejack, and the blast moved much too fast for her to dodge. Applejack screamed out in pain as the explosive burst against her rock hide and slowly cracked it apart, knocking her back into the wall again. Havoc Wing swept around for another pass, her face alight with intense rage. She fired another volley of fire, and Applejack hastily channeled all of her strength to raise a wall of rock in front of her to protect her from the incoming assault. The wall shattered and exploded under the intense force of the blast, letting Havoc easily sweep through and grab her again. She slammed her into another wall and stayed perfectly well within close range in order to deliver a ferocious flurry of literally explosive punches to Applejack's face. I'm tired. I'm yawning like crazy.
Would a chicken do this? Huh? Would a chicken do this?
Havoc Ring screeched.
Answer me, you barking bitch!
Applejack yelling loud and then going back to talking is confusing. Applejack focused all of her might on pushing herself forcibly out of the rock, knocking herself and Havoc Wing popping out of the rock. Applejack attempted to defend herself, but before she could even move, Havoc Wing was angrily on her again and grabbed her by the tail. She twirled up and up, higher and higher, out of the canyon and into the stormy sky above.
You listen good, you piece of trash!
Havoc Wing spat with all the fire and bile that was possible.
I am not a chicken! You remember that when your friends have to pick you up, piece by fucking piece, and I'm through with you, you illiterate, inbred hick! Lesson 0. You want to mess with Havoc Wing? You better get ready to feel the sting!
She twirled up and released another burst of firing Applejack like a missile toward the ground. Applejack panicked again, but could barely think through the pain of the burning sensation searing across her body through her rocky hide. She could see the ground rapidly approaching, and wondered if even the Earth's love for her would be able to cushion the fall. But before Applejack could even hit the ground, Havoc swooped in and caught her, flew in a loop and fired her into a canyon wall from point-blank range, embedding Applejack painfully in the wall. Havoc Wing grabbed Applejack's tail that was poking out, yanked her from the wall, and blasted her off at the opposite wall. Applejack groaned through the pain and barely registered being grabbed by the tail again and swung toward the opposite wall and fired at it. Applejack crumbled to the ground after the fourth repeat and struggled to her hooves with great difficulty, barely being able to stand for half a second before one of her legs gave way to the pain. Her rock armor was cracking all over, and she was finding it hard to focus herself on keeping it stable, keeping it solid, keeping it keeping her safe. Hunger, pain, exhaustion, they all came crashing down on her as Havoc Wing fluttered over and remained hovering just a few feet away, her white-hot body slowly shimmering back down to a moderate blue.
Come on, dirt sucker! Did you think you had a chance? I'm better than you! She seethed, her hoofs causing the dirt to sizzle and blacken beneath her hoofs. That you even tried is insulting enough that you had to go and say something stupid. Get up! Applejack struggled to her hooves again and crumbled once more. Havoc was not amused and floated forward, her hooves igniting with pure heat. I said, get up! Get up so I can kick your ass some more, punk! Applejack struggled to her hooves and focused all her might on staying steady, then looked in Havoc's direction and took a single, defiant step forward. Y'all think y'all can finish me off? Well, if y'all think you're all so tough, then let's have at. Whoa, Nelly! She yelled as she was suddenly snapped around her throat by a thick red tendril and yanked through the fog. Havoc Wing drove forward to try and catch her, and missed terribly. Sorry, that was funny. She glared in the direction Applejack had taken and spit liquid fire on the ground. Damn it, damn it, damn it! Red, that one's mine! I'm telling the boss! Fluttershy and Rarity felt themselves suddenly pop back into existence in midair high above the canyon, and they immediately began to fall and grabbed onto one another in panic. This lasted for all about 2 seconds, before they very suddenly slowed, kept aloft by a dull silver glow that separated them and forced them into form-fitting bubbles of magic. We're flying! Fluttershy squeaked. Sorry. Don't panic, Fluttershy, Rarity said calmly. Besides, you're a Pegasus. You can already fly, darling. Oh, but I don't like flying when I'm not doing the flying, the Pegasus nervously reminded Rarity as she frantically looked about for whatever was keeping them up. I don't even like flying when I'm the one doing the flying. A familiar smug laugh drew their attention, and they tried to see where it was coming from, but they were forced to turn in its direction anyway. I will concede the point, Grayscale. This strategy is certainly a major improvement upon our previous attempts. I'd assume further would be quite impressive with Curacao and your aptitude for tactics. A subtle change in precise location, and we have gained an incredible advantage. Starlight Shadow! Rarity glared, her voice icy. The purple unicorn fluttered down from the storm clouds above, until she was just in front of them, kept aloft by a pair of wings glowing a dim, sinister purple, bat-like in appearance. But by her side was Grayscale Force, of course. Given the conversation they'd just heard, the Pegasus bore a stern look on her face, eyes darting every which way as she rapidly scanned around below and around them. Evidently looking for something in all the chaos below. Ho ho ho! What seems to have you all flustered, Rarity? Starlight said with a wide, smug grin. Is it not unbecoming of a lady such as yourself to use such a bitter intonation when addressing fellow ladies? If you must know, I've simply grown tired of seeing you all, especially after what you did to Twilight, you walking thesaurus, Rarity spat. Thesaurus? Starlight gave a loud, drawn-out laugh. Oh, a walking thesaurus, am I? Aforesaid frivolous ignomelody emitting from a nugatory dorade congruent with yourself are infinitesimally picune, analogous to an iota of terra firma malingering amidst the amaranthine macrocosm. The great will of the macrocosm. Sorry, that's Excel Saga joke stuff. We watch it, it's great. Rarity blinked several times, then shook her head. Enough. Sorry. Enough. Nothing. Release. Ah ha ha. Perhaps it would be prudent of you not to elaborate further along your current train of thought, Starlight said, pouting downwards. I may just
become overcome with a flight of fancy and accommodate your demands. Rarity was undeterred. This whole storm is your doing, isn't it? Just like the rock field before. Brilliant deduction, Starlight grinned. It is now clear to me why a mare as powerful as Sparkle would humor a pathetic weakling like yourself in allowing you to even be allowed to bask in her presence. Perhaps you are not as incompetent as I originally believed. No doubt this is why Curacao requested a change in strategy regarding you. The mocking was obvious, but Rarity would have no part of it, and turned it right back around. Humph! So your tactical advisor is afraid to face me, is she? She smiled confidently. Starlight laughed extremely loud, and even Grayscale barely was able to keep herself from cracking a smile. Oh, my! No, just no! Curacao merely is of the option that her unique talents are more efficient put to use elsewhere. Frankly, I too am of the option that my power and talents is squandered on such simpletons as you and your terrified little mouse behind you. She added with a smug grin in Fluttershy's direction, causing Fluttershy to squeak and try to shy away fruitlessly. You leave her alone, Rarity shouted. If your business is with me, then release her. Starlight ignored Rarity and continued. Still, it would behoove me to, as I was explaining to Grayscale prior to your arrival, acknowledge their existence display of tactical prowess. Just a single instant of a mare with only half of my illustrious endowment would prove overkill were she entrusted with such a vast task as dominating you. The terribly ineffective benefactor. She smiled as she shook Rarity around in the air like a doll. The Beastmaster whose beast is incapable of acting whilst imprisoning within even the most insubstantial and rudimentary of magical barriers. This time shaking Fluttershy and laughing gleefully as Oftenham angrily tried to bash his way out of the shield. Oh, and of course, she smirked wide as she floated around another glowing figure, unconscious and trapped inside a third glowing sphere of magic. Twilight! Rarity and Fluttershy exclaimed. A languid mage, her magic depleted and her resolve weakened. I dare say she would not be foolhardy enough to attempt any manner of circumvision of my spells, lest she repeat the ordeal of that dreadful feedback incident. Only in this particular scenario she is a mile up, and while I have my beloved sister here at my side, she only possesses a weakling and pony who could not fly in her life if her life depended on it. And they would all soon find their bodies dashed upon the sediment below. I'll let you decide upon which of you is which. Speaking of dashing, Grayscale spoke at last. Boss, I noticed something. Yes, Gray, what is it? Starlight asked, half concerned and not really diverting her focus from the three mares she was busily juggling. Rainbow Dash! Sorry. Rainbow Dash! I don't see her anywhere. If she were scouting around, she'd be back by now to help. Truly? Starlight asked, actually interested now and temporarily turning her attention to Grayscale. Curious, where could that expedient Pegasus be hiding? And to think, dear sister, that we went through this entire exercise with the intent of putting you against her. You must be terribly disappointed. Grayscale smiled lightly. Not at all, in fact. If she's not here and hasn't returned yet, she looked over at Rarity and Fluttershy. She smiled, her smile widening. She left, didn't she? That's none of your... Rarity started. That's a yes, Grayscale interrupted. Well, how about that? Rainbow Dash abandoning her friends. Perhaps you should have listened to her more. Rarity and Fluttershy's expression both lit up in shock. Grayscale's smile widened. But I suppose it would have happened eventually. After all, it was only a matter of time before all your infighting caused you to kick her out yourself. That's not true, Fluttershy blurted. We would never... Even after she insults your good friend, Lockwood. I mean, there's only so much you can listen to her berate him for. Fluttershy's shocked expression returned. How would you know about that? Starlight felt grayscale shift, a small change in the magical spectrum that she doubted anyone but herself and Twilight could feel. She conceded, curious, and Fluttershy and Rarity both accelerated suddenly and violently, stopping inches from Grayscale's eyes, suddenly wide and triumphant. How'd I know? How would the lazy monster of the bad guys understand the subtle intricacies of your pony politics? In a move clearly done with magic to even the shivering yellow Pegasus, Grayscale changed positions imperceptibly. The result was immediate, without a visible sign of movement. She'd shot out with her hoof, gripping Rarity's dress at her neck. Starlight herself could not be sure if there were visible signs of movement without evoking more magic than she wanted, already using a considerable amount of her inexhaustible, if deep attention to maintain her wings despite the wind of the storms, her greatest exertion, and holding a thick barrier around Twilight and the others. You, Fascinatia, attempting to meddle and malign while your friends needed to be pulled together. You care about form over function and try to present an aura of remaining above the indignities and problems, and thus isolate yourself from the solution. When things got bad, you kept to yourself, kept to your frivolities, so your friends would have a stable base as their world began to crack around them, and their stomachs grew empty. When you realized you had to intervene, it was too late, and no one wanted your opinion anymore. Least of all, your best friend. Grayscale's eyes flashed. Say I'm wrong. She waited. Nothing? She's shocked. Nothing? Shocking, considering what I'm about to do. To you. She said next, again shifting her magic imperceptibly and gripping Fluttershy on the chin, now slowly squeezing with her magic on Fluttershy's cheek, pouting her face for her. You got angry when your best friend confronted you with the truth in the most insufferable but polite way. That the pony you've only just met and grown to care for will likely die, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Your response? How could it be anything but anger from someone as repressed and bottled as a wallflower who believes in good things above all else? Tell me I'm wrong, Fluttershy. Grayscale's upper lip curled, spinning her hoof away, making both Fluttershy and Rarity cry out from the maneuver, from the way it snapped the Pegasus' head back violently. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me, just like you told Rainbow Dash. Grayscale flicked her wings, and they felt pressure in the air. The intense gravity radiating from around Grayscale's body began to draw and grapple in the air towards her slightly, forcing the arcs of lightning up in the storm to screech dangerously close to the 5 ponies up in the sky. Starlight had to focus herself more on the storm than before to ensure that the lightning generated was kept to a minimum, and kept away from them all more out of worry for herself than any pony else. How could you know any of this? Rarity gulped. You weren't there when... Grayscale laughed and interrupted. Simply as putting 2 and 2 together. Your group has always been easy to follow. Why else would I sleep so much? Would you believe that Rainbow Dash already knew about your betrayal the moment you started arguing with her in the murder site apartment? That you harbored thoughts in the night that might even make me sick? All of you, forgetting yourselves, forgetting how you impacted one another, expected on the superficial level that you are friends and your friendship is the source of your unity and the beginning of magic and victory, forgetting yourself to fear and doubt, the very thing that eats away at any and all relationships until you use the connection itself to strengthen one another. She isn't here, so that didn't happen, did it? They remained silent. Just as I thought. Grayscale, Starlight Shadow said quietly, cutting through the magical storm. The spine-crawling aura that large Pegasus had been emitting began to recede, and her expression returned to her usual half-laden dismissal. Well done, sister. I'm impressed, to say the least. Her voice tried to hide the tinge of disappointment in herself. Well done indeed. Havoc owes me 50 bits, Grayscale said with a slow, rolling chuckle. And, well, if Rainbow isn't here to keep me company, I guess I can lend a hoof in dealing with these three. I can take the boredom for a little bit. I'm in a damn good mood right now. You think we're going to just let you toy around with us? Rarity asked, visibly trying to shake herself from the shock. Starlight chuckled. Well, naturally. You're powerless, suspended in mid-air, miles above the ground, and your only hope for salvation, the incredible amateur that she is, floats unconscious still beside you. What action could you possibly take? Rarity looked at Fluttershy, and Fluttershy looked right back, an unspoken agreement between them. This! Rarity flared her horn and gripped onto Grayscale Force with all her magic and slammed her into Starlight. It had been totally unexpected and therefore it had actually worked, causing Starlight to lose her focus and drop Rarity. Fluttershy and Twilight instantly as she spun to regain control of her flight. Fluttershy raced to grab Rarity, who was closest, while Ophanim flashed outward as an eagle once again and grabbed hold of the barrier that surrounded Twilight. They only managed to drop a few dozen feet before Starlight grabbed onto them again with her magic. Tsk, tsk. Starlight tuttered. What a shameful, wasted attempt. Was that display of fortitude supposed to accomplish anything? Besides make me laugh, of course. Rarity looked rather sheepish. Well, you weren't supposed to regain control so quickly. Starlight looked at them with disbelief. You're serious? Did you forget who I am? Starlight Shadow, all-powerful unicorn, unsurpassed in might and unmatched in talent and drive, goddess among mares? Ringing any bells? You are supposed to be weakened, Rarity responded. Twilight is. Why aren't you? How are you still able to wield your magic so fully? Ha! 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 You still compare me to that pathetic novice? Starlight chortled. She may have been able to surprise me with that feedback spell, and she may be exceedingly powerful, but she's nothing next to my magnificence. But you want to know why I'm still in such fantastic condition? I suppose it's because, unlike all of you simpletons, I'm not starving to death, so my energy recharges significantly faster. I can feel your weakness, and I speak of the weakness beyond your natural ineptitude. Your magic still wanes even as we speak. You're pathetic. Weak little... Grayscale suddenly nudged Starlight to get her attention. What? The Pegasus pointed downwards toward the canyon. Boss, you might want to take a look at what's going on down there. Starlight looked down below, to where she saw darkness beginning to spread outwards from where just earlier she'd seen explosions from Havoc wings, fireballs flying every which way. She couldn't even see those anymore, almost as if they'd stopped entirely. What in Equestria? Starlight started. She suddenly narrowed her eyes. I recognize that magic signature. Red velvet. Come along, Grayscale. It seems our older sister is getting carried away. Again. Velvet lashed a tendril out into the fog with a snap. Flathoof and Tock heard a loud yell actually reverberate through the tendril, and were surprised to see the tendril whip back only seconds later, like a rope on a pulley, dragging along a pony in its grips that tried as she might to get away. The tendril snapped again and whipped her over to Velvet, who swung her around and knocked her into her earlier captives. Applejack. What in tarnation? She started, then looked to see the other two ponies sharing her predicament, her eyes widened in fear. Flathoof? Tock? Dagnabbit. She got you too. Shoot. Oh, dear Applejack. Velvet cooed, running her tendrils along Applejack's cracked stone body with disappointed curiosity. Oh, now this is a crying shame. If there was one mare around here with the body tone to really get me going, it was you. But all this rock seals off the tender flesh. Well,
maybe it's not so bad. I know. I'll crack you open like an egg and just slurp up all the juicy inside. Let go of me, you psycho! Applejack snapped, wriggling in Velvet's grip, placing her hooves at her throat to try and yank off the tendril wrapped around her. Y'all can't get to none of that nasty business with me anyway. Even if y'all were allowed to, I'm rock solid through and through. Oh, you're no fun, Velvet said with a mocking pout. I guess I'll have to make my own fun with you then. Let's peer into your heart. See what your darkest fears are. She looked into Applejack's eyes and laughed coldly. You're like your friend Flathoof here. So much more alike than I think you even know. So afraid of losing your friends that you'd do anything to keep them safe, defend them from harm, even sacrificing your own safety to do so no matter the cost. How very sickeningly noble of you. But what else can I see in you? Taints that nobility. I can see that you're keeping secrets. Applejack's eyes widened and Velvet snickered again. Applejack began to shake in fear at what she saw. Her friends, all disgusted and ashamed, shunning her, abandoning her. You're disgusting, came Rarity's voice. And after all I told you, simply deplorable. Oh man, AJ, that's just sick and wrong. Rainbow dashed this time. I can't say I'm surprised, to be honest. Twilight's voice, calm and practical, which made it worse. I've been doing some reading, and I found it used to be perfectly common practice in our ancient history. Not nowadays, though. Of course, but Applejack's always going on about being old-fashioned. She turned her head to look for support from Flathoof, and felt the pain seize through her again. Him and Tock wrapped together in an intimate embrace. They looked at her when they felt her watching, and Flathoof gave her a totally nonchalant look.
Well, what did you expect? I already told you I prefer unicorns. And smart mares, too.
Exactly as if you stooped so low as to taint yourself by being with an inbred hick like yourself.
Tock image scoffed.
You thought you had a chance with him? You are bleeding daft. I knew it. Such dirty little secrets they are too, Applejack,
Velvet breathed.
I see why you like him, though. He is just a gorgeous hunk of meat, isn't he? I suppose we like him for different reasons, but
y'all just keep her mouth shut, Applejack spat. Velvet chortled.
Oh, don't worry, Applejack. Simple mathematics tell me that I'll do more damage to you when I kill these two without them ever knowing why you hate them so. I can feel their hate flowing back, and it's not quite as tasty as beer, but it's a nice supplement, like vitamin hate. Now, let's see. There's another one of you around here. Here we go. Let's see what's behind door number 2.
She lashed another tendril out with a snap and snagged onto something off in the fog. She tugged and strained herself a little as she still tugged, until finally she got sick of tugging and let whatever was on the other end tug away, trailing her tendril back around in a loop and connecting it back to herself. A simple smirk, and she lifted whatever was in her grip. It rubber-banded toward them like a missile, and she caught it just before it flew overhead, swinging it around and bringing it face to face. Pinkie piped.
Well, if it isn't my favorite pony ever,
Velvet cooed with a malicious smile.
Hiya, Pinkie. Long time no see. Did you miss me?
I missed you.
Red, I was wondering where you were hiding. Let go of me.
Pinkie squealed.
Let go of me so I can wallop you. Grrr. It's cute that you're still so brave in light of everything.
Pinkie swung her legs up and kicked Velvet right in the chin. The other Earth Pony lost her focus for half a second before snarling and reasserting her grip.
tighter this time. She took a deep breath and calmly laughed. No goading me into a bout of anger this time, Pinkie. Curacao told me I needed to just take a deep breath and relax. I've got plans for tonight, Pinkie dear. Plans for you and all your precious friends. We don't have time for games, so let's cut to the chase and peer into those precious souls of yours. Let's see what you fear most. Red looked Pinkie in the eyes, and her own began to ooze black more fluidly now, spreading it across her face and dripping to the ground. Pinkie's eyes flashed as the visions flooded her head again. Pinkie fought as hard as she could to resist, but all it amounted to was her witnessing the same old thing, visions of her friends being completely destroyed, slaughtered by an unseen monster. Velvet visibly frowned as she pulled away. Boring! Same old, huh, Pinkie? You're not as fun as you used to be. Red Velvet! A voice from behind her called. Velvet tilted her head and watched as Grayscale and Starlight Shadow landed, with Rarity, Fluttershy, and Twilight in tow. Rarity and Fluttershy were both very visibly shocked when they caught sight of their friends caught in Velvet's grasp. What exactly is it that you think you are accomplishing down here, besides inciting disappointment from me? Starlight demanded. Oh, boss! Velvet smiled genuinely. You bought me some more firewood! Thanks for that! Ignoring the look on Starlight's face, Velvet lashed out again and grabbed Rarity, Fluttershy, and Twilight all together and pulled them over to her, completely bypassing Starlight's magic, much to the unicorn's surprise. Starlight stepped forward and stamped a hoof. Red Velvet, I do believe we engaged in previous discussions regarding this sort of thing, yes? You're treading on thin ice, sister. Boss, relax. I'm just having a little fun, Velvet chuckled. I've got them all right where we want them. Ready for phase 2. They're all weak and helpless and desperate. And I just have to enjoy this for just a little bit. You know how often I ever get to really enjoy myself? Never. Please, boss, let me have this. Starlight narrowed her eyes, then turned up her nose. I suppose I can allow it, for the time being. I remind you, though, that if you overstep... Yeah, whatever, Velvet said, dismissively waving her hoof. Let's see now. Oh, you three will be easy. Fluttershy, she chortled as she wept the frantically squirming Pegasus in front of her. You are afraid of everything. Havoc's little confidence lessons, maybe making you less afraid to speak your mind and stand up for yourself on or your friends. But no matter how confident you are, you're still just a scared little mouse in a room full of cats. You're just like Havoc is, but at least she puts on a better brave face about it. But right now, there's a little twinge of darkness in there. She grinned as she ran her tongue along her lips. There it is. So there is something I feel more than anything. Well, at least for the moment. She looked into Fluttershy's eyes, and the Pegasus's vision filled with darkness until at last Velvet's figure melted away, piece by piece, until it was replaced with Lockwood's. He was lying there, crumpled in a bloody heap on the ground. She tried to move him, but couldn't. He wasn't moving, wasn't breathing. The image of Flathoof trotted over to him and cradled him in his hooves, his face overcome with tears. He snapped his head up to glare at Fluttershy. This is all your fault, he sneered. He's dead because of you. Velvet cackled as Fluttershy shivered and began to tear up. Go right there! Dread really is amongst the best kind of feelings! Well, let's keep this train rolling, Rarity! She smiled as she rotated the unicorn to the front. Your anger seeps out of your heart. The fear you have of losing your closest friend, of seeing her heart break. You fear for Lockwood is compounded because your fear for her well-being and... Oh, this is good. Rarity cried out in pain as the voices stung through her head as well.
It's all your fault. He died. He did what he did.
Fluttershy's voice was angry, filled with never-before-seen bile and hatred.
If you hadn't pushed us together, he would have never been forced into all this. It's your fault he's dead. It's your fault I...
Enough! Rarity pleaded. Enough! No more! Velvet snickered and twirled Twilight around to the front, who was now only just barely conscious.
And the great Twilight sparkle.
Oh, you're easy. I don't even need to look that hard into your heart to see what you fear the most.
Failure, disappointment,
Loneliness. The darkness in your heart stems from a fear that you'll
fail to get your friends
to their destination.
That something terrible will happen to them. That those that you are left will abandon you, just as Rainbow Dash did. And there's something more here.
Visions of friends on the other side of the ocean, maybe?
Friends and family that you'll never see again.
I assure you, Twilight, you may as well forget about them.
We won't let you win.
Twilight breathed.
Oh, it's not intended! You all still think you have the gumption to resist us?
No.
To resist me? Hilarious! That's the best joke I've heard in ever! I believe this calls for a little music. I've had this little song in my head for days now, and I've just got to sing it! I know you're all dying to hear what it is. Come on then, everybody! Take a seat!
She slammed the whole lot of them fiercely into the nearest wall of rock, releasing them from her grip at last.
I'll even let you all try and take me on. If you're as brave as good as you say you are, then you'll be fine. If not, well... Anyway... Are you guys ready? Come then! Let's see what you've got!
Applejack, Flathoof, and Pinkie were the first to their hooves and took forward positions. She ain't serious, is she? Applejack coughed. She's gonna try to take us all on.
I wouldn't be so dismissive,
Flathoof added as he rubbed his neck.
My head's still ringing from the pounding she gave me earlier. She's stronger than she looks.
I've seen how strong she is, and I don't care how strong she is, Pinkie proudly stated, getting back into a fighting stance and strapping a brand new shoulder-mounted heat-seeking BFRL 3000 across her back. Together, guys, we can do anything! We've taken down tougher cookies than her when we work as a team.
Agreed, Rarity said as she took position behind the trio. Sorry. Rarity said as she took position behind the trio and coated them with the blue glow. As long as we stick together, we can handle anything. When we've finished with her, we can move on to the others and get out of this dreadful canyon. Then get back on our path for home. Fluttershy stepped in to Rarity's side and prodded Orphanum in the form of a wolf to send him forward as well, though he seemed to be a little weary of approaching and leaving Fluttershy behind him where he couldn't directly protect her. If y'all don't mind, I think it might be best if I make sure Twilight is kept out of this. She's in no condition to fight, Tock noted, backing away and standing defensively near the other unicorn, who was panting heavily and trying to get to her hoofs.
Tock, I have to help them. They're my...
She was finding it harder and harder to speak and stay upright at the same time, wobbling uncontrollably as if she were learning to walk for the first time. Come now, Twilight. This is no time to try and act the hero. If you overexert yourself, you may never recover. Just stay calm. I'll keep us covered, all right? You'll be with them in spirit.
Oh boy, this is gonna be fun!
Velvet bounced, licking her lips.
Okay then, cue the not music in G major, if you please.
Applejack and Flathoof cringed charged in first. Pinkie Pie and Orphanum right behind them. Velvet smiled wide and let her blood flare about her in a furious display of tendrils and blades and spikes. Took a deep breath and began to sing.
Oh, my name is Red Velvet.
Velvet grabbed Flathoof's face with a tendril, then snapped him straight at the nearest wall.
Nice try!
He fell to the ground in a heap with a groan as rocky debris tumbled about on top of him.
And I am here to say...
Applejack leapt in, one hoof drawn back in an attempt to strike, but he was caught by another tendril without Velvet even turning her head, which brought her down to Velvet's eye level. Velvet snapped her head over and grinned wild. Then she smashed Applejack to the ground in front of her, before flicking her away like a piece of litter.
I'm gonna make you scream, and you'll never see another day!
Off of them leapt in next, jaws open and aimed at Velvet's neck, but was fiercely grabbed by the tendril by another. But was fiercely grabbed by the tail by another tendril and swung around in a wide circle before being slammed into Pinkie Pie before the latter could get close enough to strike.
It doesn't matter now!
Pinkie rolled and bounced and quickly recovered, then brandished her shoulder-mounted heat-seeking BFRL 3000 while still in midair, aiming it at Velvet's head with pierced accuracy and squeezing the trigger with a confident grin.
What was that? If you are fast and true!
Velvet flicked her blood in a spiral in Pinkie's direction without looking, catching the rocket just as it was fired from her bazooka, turning it around and shoving it back into the tube. Pinkie's eyes widened in panic.
Oh, don't failure!
The rocket exploded, blowing apart the weapon and sending Pinkie flying backwards into the nearest wall.
Cause killing all your friends is just what Velvet's here to do!
Orphan shook off the pain and regained his luster, then leapt at her again, this time from behind. Velvet's grin widened, and she didn't even bother turning to face him either. He was warded for the attempted sneak attack as a bloody spike snapped around and impaled him through the face. Orphanum's light flickered rapidly and died out in a fierce shower of sparks and mist. His orbed form flashed instantly back over to Fluttershy, who cradled the slowly flickering light in her hooves in a panic and pushed him back into his bracelet.
Cause I love to hear you scream, scream! Yes, I do. It fills my heart with bloodlust to the extreme. Yes, it does. Cause all I really need is scream, and then you'll see me in your dreams.
Velvet laughed maniacally as the ponies around her all stumbled back to their hooves, taking delight at the tearful look on Fluttershy's face and the terrified one on Rarity. She went off to the offense now, charging first at Applejack and Flathoof, who were recovering nearby, who were recovering near one another and helping each other stand upright. She lashed out at them with a flurry of blood and darkness. They stood firm in place and prepared themselves to move before Velvet suddenly disappeared into black, then widely looked about them to catch sight of her, not noticing her melt through the wall right behind them.
I like to hear you shriek!
Applejack snapped her head to look at the voice, then yelled loudly in a panic as Velvet's tendril grabbed her face, whirled her up into the air, then swung her around and used her as a weapon to smack Flathoof aside, sending him flying several dozen yards away.
I love to see you run!
Velvet pursued him with an eager hunger in her eyes. Flathoof panicked, rolled to avoid having Applejack slam on top of him, and began to flee as the other Earth pony continued to be smashed against the ground just behind him, desperately scrambling to get herself out of Velvet's grip.
Awesome! Inspiring terror in your heart! It's what Velvet does for fun!
Flathoof continued to run from the Applejack battering ram, and didn't see one of Velvet's tendrils snake around in front of him, and tripped over it. Then made him a ridiculously easy target, and Applejack was crushing on top of him. They lay together in a heap. I think that's supposed to be. They lay together in a heap as Velvet released her living weapon and laughed again, turning back towards where she'd seen Pinkie beginning to slowly get to her hooves.
But if you're kind of happy!
Velvet fired a tendril at Pinkie with astounding speed and snagged the other Earth pony around the neck, drawing her close with a snap. Pinkie sneered as Velvet looked over in her eyes again, laughing and grinning the same wild, fanged smile.
And her heart thinks that you're brave!
Pinkie reared back and headbutt Velvet as hard as she could in the face, knocking Velvet staggering back a step and rubbing her nose, dropping Pinkie In the sudden stupor, Pinkie reared back again and went to deliver a punch. I work real hard and... Velvet caught Pinkie's hoof with another tendril and flung her upright before slamming her into the ground again behind her, then swung back around to crash into the ground in front.
Descend into an early grave!
Pinkie struggled to her hoofs, and her eyes widened in surprise as Velvet brought down another set of tendrils upon her. She rolled aside and avoided the entire barrage, save for one, which grabbed her by the leg, flicked her away. She landed and rolled and crumpled in a heap near Flathoof and Applejack, who started to help her up the second she stopped moving.
Cause I love to make you bleed. Yes, I do. Spread it all about. Oh, yes, indeed. Just let me see you bleed. And when you're done, you'll be dead.
Velvet approached the trio with a menacing gait, only to have Rarity rush over and stand at their side. Her horn glared white and shrouding them with the same glow. Fluttershy just behind her and rushing to help Pinkie Pie the rest of the way up. The five of them all stood firm and glared in Velvet's direction. She laughed and let her blood flare out again. The blood was barely even red anymore, more black than anything else, and Velvet's face seemed to be covered with the same black ooze that leaked now from her eyes, ears, mouth, and every gaping wound she had.
It's true, sometimes you'll show up.
The five of them started to move, and in an instant she attacked before they could get into position again. She lashed out and grabbed Applejack first, swinging her about to knock the others aside before throwing her at Tock, who hastily raised a barrier to avoid being slammed into by her ally.
And maybe you feel strong!
Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie charged together, dodging aside to avoid more tendrils that lashed out in their direction and burst into the ground, just in their wake with enough force to shatter rock.
But we'll be here to show you that.
Once in melee range, they both went to attack at once. Velvet's mouth opened hungrily, and she grabbed them both by the throats with tendrils that sprung suddenly from her hoof, twirling them around and bashing them into one another.
There's one under.
She discarded Pinkie first, throwing her in Tock's direction like a missile, making the unicorn put up another barrier to protect herself from the impact. Pinkie slammed into the shield and rolled off of it and landed on Applejack, who was still barely getting to her hooves.
And fills my whole life with pride.
Then she brought Flathoof to her face and hungrily licked her lip.
And that's when I slap you from the inside.
She latched her mouth onto his and wrapped her hooves around his neck. Flathoof howled in severe pain through the unholy gesture as the feeling of having his very life sucked right out of him ripped through his body. It took Rarity grabbing hold of Velvet's hoof with her magic and tripping her to break her focus and releasing him. Flathoof hastily scrambled away, frantically brushing black blood off his mouth as Rarity rushed to his side. Velvet shook her head as she got back to her hooves and grinned maniacally in that direction.
I really am so happy!
She lashed out another tendril right past Flathoof's head, wrapping it around and grabbing Rarity by the horn and blocking her magic. Rarity yelped as she was lifted into the air and slammed into the ground once, just once, with the same force she'd been using on Flathoof and Applejack. Rarity didn't get back up quite as quickly.
Your fears fill me with pain!
Fluttershy panicked and ran to Rarity's aid. Fluttershy yelled for her to stop, but it was too late. The Pegasus gave a terrified scream as the tendril released Rarity and snaked its way toward her, grabbing her around the middle and locking her wings in place, then snapped her over to Velvet. Flathoof ran at them to try and separate them, but was tripped again by another tendril.
I can't
scream!
Velvet smiled her menacing grin as she drew the trembling, squirming Fluttershy eye to eye with her, then screamed, letting loose a blood-curdling roar that shook the very earth around them. Fluttershy shook violently and fainted, and was tossed aside like a used toy, landing haphazardly near Rarity, who still remained motionless.
And that's so special to me!
Velvet laughed and turned her attention to Tock at last, then began heading toward her with the same slow, purposeful, menacing gait. Flathoof attempted to stand in her way and was batted aside almost as soon as he'd barred her path. Tock, the only one amongst the 4 ponies in her vicinity who was even able to reliably stand, gulped loudly and flared up her horn in preparation of self-defense.
"'Cause I love to see you. Yes, I do. Tell me what more can I do, you little bird? What you do? It makes me happy. Yes, it always makes my day."
Velvet lashed all of her tendrils outward, grabbing onto every pony by the throat and drawing them to her again. Applejack and Flathoof groaned in pain, the former's stone skin cracked and barely maintaining any integrity at all, the latter bleeding and bruised as his toughness and endurance finally began to wane. Pinkie Pie continued to struggle to get out of the grip, desperate to keep herself going and inspire her friends to do the same despite the pain she was feeling. Rarity, Fluttershy, and Twilight remained silent and still unconscious, with only the latter lucky enough not to have experienced any of all of this. Tock was also silent and still, though she was in visible panic as she was placed in the center of Velvet's now encircling tendrils that lifted her and her friends to orbit around her. Velvet laughed and laughed and laughed.
"Come on, every pony! Scream! Fill your hearts up with nightmares! All I really need is a scream! Come on, show me that you're screaming!"
Those of the group who were still alert and awake began to look around them in a panic as Velvet's voice echoed from all directions until it sounded like they were hundreds upon hundreds of her, all singing in unison, forming an unholy chorus that echoed throughout the broken canyon.
"Come on, every pony! Scream! Fill your heart up with nightmares! All I really need is a scream! Come on, show me that you're scared!"
The chorus of Velvet's other voices continued, some high-pitched and other low, as Velvet brought Tock eye to eye with her.
"Come on, every pony! Scream!
The others were all slowly being coated in her blood, and even those who'd been unconscious before weren't now, and they all screamed in severe pain as the blackened, sickening ooze tightened around them. Only Tock was spared this treatment. Instead of being forced to look into the darkness of Velvet's eyes, watching as her eyes now turned totally black, save for a tiny red dot in the center, matching the sick ooze that flowed forth from everywhere on her body like a plague. The black ooze began to creep up through the bloody tendrils that held Tock's throat, inching its way up toward her mouth and sending searing pain ripping through the unicorn's body.
"Come on, show me that
Red Velvet smiled the same wild, feigned grin and sang to Tock directly now, her voice reverberating with a horrible, unholy sound straight from the worst, deepest pits of darkness and horror that Tock had ever known.
Yes, a perfect gift for me! There's a scream from your darkest dream to make me happy as can be! Scream! 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 Come on and scream! Come on and scream!
Tock tried to scream as hard as she could, but the horrible liquid had by now covered her mouth and drowned it out, bubbling and churning at the attempt and getting past her lips, making her choke and retch. Velvet's sickening grin widened until it looked like her face would split in half. The grin suddenly turned to a disappointed frown as a light source shined from behind her, breaking apart the shroud of black that had surrounded her and her prey. Red Velvet! Starlight's shadow spoke clearly, disdainfully. You have violated the stipulations of this ordeal. You are now overstepping the boundaries, sister. Stand down now.
Boss! You are really cutting into my groove right now.
Velvet hissed angrily.
I am this close to reaching the epitome of ecstasy. I can more than just taste it now. The fierce screams and pain fill my very soul. Now, what it feels like to have immeasurable power flow through you, that's what this is like.
Charming. You are of the option that this feeble demonstration is worthy of comparing to me? Starlight laughed coyly. Enough, Velvet! Your unspeakably homicidal mannerisms are threatening the health and livelihood of the mares we do not wish injury upon as well. She pointed upwards to where every pony else besides Tock was writhing in agony. One false step along this course of action, and you'll risk everything.
Boss, you're making me mad!
Velvet seethed.
I am in complete control. Let me handle this.
You do not appear to be anywhere within the vicinity of in control, sister. Starlight huffed in annoyance. I can see that familiar visage sprawled across your features. You are too far gone to be allowed further transgressions. Stand down now. Velvet looked sharply at Starlight. What? I'm trying to kill the Chronomancer here, as we were told. I am in control. Starlight glared. You forget your place, sister. The right to the Chronomancer's head still remains in my sole possession as your leader. Release them. All of them. Now. Do not force me to repeat myself. Why should I? Velvet snapped, rolling her gaze back to her quarry. Because if you choose not to release them, then you will be disobeying my authority again, Starlight sneered, flaring up her own horn. Need I prompt your memory of what occurred during the same scenario in a previous encounter? Further, Father has entrusted me to punishing further insubordination, and I will not tolerate any further disobedience from him. Velvet suddenly stopped and appeared totally calm. Starlight smirked and let her horn dim slowly. Now, wasn't that a simpler course of action? All right, you can release...
That's it, isn't it?
Velvet said with eerie calm. It? What's it? Starlight hummed.
I've been trying to figure it out, you know? Ever since Daddy gave me these powers, I've been trying to figure it all out.
Velvet said, still calm as she slowly turned her head back towards Starlight.
I figured out all the others. Only Curacao and Grayscale were hard to read. Apart from you.
Little sister!
What are you blathering on about? Starlight snorted angrily. I can't help but notice you still haven't released...
I figured out what you're afraid of!
Velvet said, her smile back to a sickening width as her head literally turned all the way around to look at Starlight. Starlight took only the slightest of steps backwards. Me? Afraid? I have no fear of anything, dear sister. You'd best watch your tone.
I can smell it on you!
Velvet smiled as the rest of her body twisted around to match her head so that she was walking towards Starlight now.
I can taste it in the air! One thing you're afraid of most of all! Not living up to Daddy's expectations!
Starlight spat. That is simply ridiculous, Velvet! I warn you,
You worthless little sister! I've grown in power! So much everything!
You think you're all powerful?
Daddy knows that! Have the most potential!
Daddy knows that I'm stronger!
You're nothing to my right!
How dare you! Starlight snapped, flaring up her horn. She seethed Velvet in shining light, but all the Earth Pony did was laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. Stop laughing, you imbecile!
What will Daddy say?
Velvet chortled as she walked straight through the light, unaffected in the least. Starlight took another step back as the shock of seeing it happen.
What will he do when he finds out
you failed to keep me in line? Will he punish you?
No.
Now, you're not afraid of being punished, are you? You're afraid he'll shoot you! You're afraid he'll turn you away!
You're afraid that he'll never speak with you again!
Starlight snapped and grabbed Velvet with all her might by the throat with her magic, and shook her frantically.
Shut up!
Her voice was hysterical, angry, scared.
You're afraid he won't love you!
Starlight panicked as a voice in her head came ringing, loud and true as if it was coming from right beside her. She looked in the voice's direction and saw the great looming figure of Silvertongue standing over her, a great frown upon his face, his golden eye dimmed with disappointment.
Starlight Shadow, my formerly dearest daughter, you are a failure. You are undeserving of your position and of my praise. Your weakness is a tarnish upon my otherwise spotless record of judging character and worth, and I cannot allow that spot to remain. Get out of my sight, you worthless piece of trash, before you attract more of your filth to my good name.
Stop it! Starlight yelled as she shook Velvet harder. Stop it this instant! Velvet smiled wider than ever, and the voice fired through Starlight's head again.
Did you really think that after your showing of weakness I would forgive you? That I would still allow you into my heart? Your failure has thrown all of my plans to the winds, and I am ashamed to even know you. You are nothing to me anymore.
Get out of my head!
Starlight screamed.
Get out! Get out!
Starlight backed away in a stupor and crumpled to the ground, holding her ears in her hoof.
Stop it! Stop the voices! Father doesn't hate me! He doesn't! He loves me!
Velvet laughed loudly.
How does it feel,
sister?
How does it feel
to know you're weak and powerless before the true greatest person in the universe? Fear!
She turned sharply and smiled, parting the darkness that was in her vision until the other ponies were clearly visible.
As for you, sisters, what say you? Am I not deserving of Daddy's praise?
Curacao spoke first and shook the least. Whatever you want, monsieur. We're at your command. Whatever you want. Have me say, I'll say it. Havoc Wing didn't speak at all, and visibly trembled and looked around herself in a panic. Grayscale maintained her stoic position. The tips of her wings flared regularly to negate her own shaking. Her voice was even, but her eyes were dilated. You're the boss, Velvet! Grayscale, you sellout. Insipid spoke last, her voice a pleading wail. Just don't hurt me. Oh, Curie, especially Curie. Don't hurt her either. Velvet let out a calm sigh.
Glad to see some ponies have a little common sense.
Curacao coughed. Capitan, perhaps it would be best if you liquidize the commandant now, non? Well, the opportunity is here. Velvet snapped her gaze over to Curacao.
Oh, are you telling me what to do, Curacao? Starlight, I'm needing your advice. I don't. But if you're so determined to try.
Insipid panicked and scrambled over and defensively grabbed the Earth Pony. Ooh, Curie, shh! Don't make her mad. Well, matter. Shh. Oui, but Grayscale interjected. She's merely saying that you're putting it off too long, boss. Dad wants her dead, so just do what he wants, yeah? Velvet chortled.
Oh, Daddy's orders can wait a little longer.
I'm enjoying this too much. It feels so good.
Curacao and Grayscale exchanged knowing glances at one another, and both sighed as covertly as possible.
Now then, where was I? Oh yes, I believe leader gets dibs on the commander's head.
She chuckled and drew TikTok back over to her.
So back to business. Let's see. I want this to be as possible. And I want your friends to watch and tell them their sorrow, their remorse. He will give me substance. He will give me so much substance. Think a simple beheading will do the trick. You! Let her go!
Pinkie yelled as she struggled. Velvet groaned.
For the love of... You still resisting? I don't see how this is possible. You shouldn't be... You should be a civilian like the rest of your pathetic friends.
As long as I'm around, there will always be a light to resist you, Pinkie challenged. You don't scare me, Red. I told you, I will never be scared of you ever again. Velvet sneered and drew Pinkie close.
You continue to aggravate me, Pinkie, and to no end of that. How is it you still hold on to this little beacon of hope?
She suddenly got a sly grin and chuckled.
I know. Let's see where that fire heart comes from.
Let's see if we can
shut it out.
Pinkie screamed in pain as Velvet's tendril pierced her chest and flooded her with different visions than Velvet remembered from last time. Pinkie all alone in endless darkness. All alone. Calling out for some pony that wasn't there.
All alone. Forever.
Velvet cackled and licked her lips.
That's magic!
You like the others fear! For your friends, of course. You do, I've seen it! But when I last saw it, I thought it applied pretty equally to all your friends. I didn't see it then. I see it now. I can see some pony. There's some pony that you're afraid the most.
Her mouth curled up in a wicked fanged smile.
Ah! Dear little Dashie. She abandoned you, did she? No, that's not it. That's not what you're worried about. You're worried that she abandoned you.
You're abandoned! You're losing a loved one!
This isn't terror horror. This is
just there.
Her eyes rolled back a little and she licked her lips again, letting her blood flow like water from out of her, so much that it seemed impossible that her body even could still contain a drop. The blood was unnatural.
Smelling like something unholy combined of blood and death.
That's delicious to despair. It's my favorite, you know.
It's so rare for me to taste.
Not when every pony is more afraid for their physical well-being. Fill me with your despair, Pinkie. You only have yourself to blame.
Velvet grinned wide and whispered in Pinkie's ear.
She looked to you for support, and you turned your back on her, shunned her away. I can see into your heart and your soul. I can see your fate even now. She's gone forever. Now, never to return. Why would she? You and all your little friends drove her away.
She's coming back! Pinkie
Bat. Velvet snickered.
All your little dreams and wants and needs.
The little twinges of life that you cling on to in an
Attempt to drive away the darkness that you're all so amusing to me.
How you cling onto this notion that she really cares about.
You saw her. You saw how she acted.
She hates you, Pinkie!
Not just all your friends or your other traveling companions.
She hates you!
The best part is the delicious knowledge that deep down in the blackest reaches of your heart,
where your dreams go to die. You don't believe that she'll ever come back.
Pinkie yelled at the top of her lungs and
Kicked and squirmed with all her might.
That's nonsense! She'll come back to us! She'll come back to me!
Oh, is that true, is it?
Velvet laughed maniacally, prodding Pinkie's forehead with her tendrils again.
She's left you all here to die,
and you have no pony but yourself to blame.
She's coming!
Pinkie trailed off. Very suddenly, her mane and tail deflated and drooped to new lows, and her entire body began to lose its luster and hue.
She's not coming back. I chased her away when she needed me the most.
Velvet laughed, and her
Laughter was long and triumphant. She flickered a hoof in the direction of Pinkie, about group steering.
opened a hole in the darkness that encroached upon them all. Pinkie did not sigh as the darkness drowned her and her friends until they were all swallowed up.
Only Tock remained now, locked tight in
Velvet's grip.
She watched and harassed her,
friends all vanished into the darkness.
Darkness aurora surrounding them,
screaming desperately for them
to wake up, begging them
for help.
Oh, this is so good!
Oh yes!
She cackled as she drew Tock
Back.
The gunman!
I believe, trying to think of ways to do it, right? I'd like to get your opinion on the matter. Tock. After all this, you're dead. You should go out the way you want to. Within reason, of course. I can't have you asking to be killed, being thrown into a volcano. Nobody. How would I prove?
She suddenly stopped and tilted her head slightly.
Hold on a second.
She lashed a
Kindle out in
front of her face, just
In time to smack
a lightning bolt that had apparently appeared out of nowhere
batting it aside.
and exploding against the nearest wall.
crumbling from it came a
Pony who rolled several feet into the canyon before
Finally coming into a rough
stop. Velvet snickered and grabbed onto the Pegasus as she attempted to lift it off again, lifting
her up.
and bringing her over to her face. Her prey struggled to get out of the grip, much to Velvet's delight.
Well. Look who we have here.
Velvet whistled.
Sorry, Daisy. No glorious.
you today.
Curacao and Grayscale both exchanged brief, nervous glances at one another. Curacao hastily whispered,
Well, it seems that we have yet another problem. Yeah, I can see that.
Grayscale sneered.
This is unexpected. All of this is unexpected. I hate surprises. What should we do?
Curacao asked.
We wait. Let her collapse on herself.
Grayscale murmured.
D'accord.
Curacao nodded slowly, nervously.
Watch and wait, as usual. Let go of me!
Rainbow snapped. You think you're tough? I'll take you on, punk. I'm not afraid of you. Put 'em up. Let's go. You ain't hurting my friends anymore. Not on my watch. What's the matter? Afraid I'll kick your butt?
Velvet clicked her tongue in annoyance, then struggled. Ah! That's cute.
Not afraid of me!
But you will be.
But that's not important right now.
I'll be with you.
I have business to attend to. Here. Go play in a maze made of your own terror or something.
She flicked a hoof to Rainbow's direction where the darkness opened up and made her.
Swallow the Pegasus.
Rainbow stared as she looked at the enveloping darkness.
Oh, what?
Rainbow suddenly found herself in a field of complete darkness. She was airborne, still, somehow no longer trapped in Velvet's grip, and took a moment to hover and look around the vast abyss of black and red. She scratched her head.
Okay, this is... Whoa.
Rainbow swerved to avoid a tendril of red snapping out at her from nothingness.
Screw this,
She exclaimed.
I'm out of here.
She dodged and weaved to avoid more tendrils that wormed and withered around, creating a maze of visceral living shadows. Desperate to find her friends in the darkness, she called out. Desperate to find her friends in the darkness, she called out for them.
Applejack! Twilight!
No response.
Birdie! Fluttershy! Flathoof!
Still nothing.
Lockwood? Not even him. Pinkie?
The voice was faint, but Rainbow could hear it, clear as day. She focused all her energy and fired forward in a burst of blue and white, screeching toward where she heard the voice.
Pinkie?
She screamed.
Pinkie?
She screamed.
Answer me! Where are you? Dashy! Pinkie? Pinkie!
Rainbow frantically looked about herself, trying desperately to find the source of the voice. It was growing louder.
Pinkie! Dashy! Is that you?
Rainbow fired off again into the black, desperately trying to swerve out of the way of flailing tentacles that snapped outward at her.
Pinkie! Pinkie, where are you?
She could see a light.
Dashy! Help me! Pinkie, hang on! I'm gonna get you out of here!
Rainbow focused all the energy she could, and slammed as hard as possible straight into a wall of darkness. There she was.
Hang on, Pinkie, I've got you!
Rainbow declared as she fired off with the earth pony wrapped in her hoof.
Dashy!
Pinkie blinked. She hastily rubbed her eyes, and then in a fit of disbelief, reached her hoof out and poked Rainbow Dash in the face.
Ow, hey!
Rainbow blurted.
Come on, Pinks, watch it. I'm trying to fly here. You're here!
Pinkie breathed, a smile rapidly spreading across her face.
Of course I'm here, Pinks.
Rainbow smiled.
Come on, let's get...
Velvet snickered and choked TikTok's throat roughly.
So many options here. I can't just pick one. Disembowelment? Messy.
I like it.
Oh, but then there's just a straight up heaven. That he would appreciate me thinking his worst literally. I think maybe both.
Yes. That sounds...
I can do this too. Awesome.
Yada! Velvet was knocked aside by a furious flash of light and color, completely losing her concentration and dropping all the ponies she had in her grip and releasing them from their shroud of darkness. As she recovered, her eyes widened in shock, and she narrowly avoided getting blasted in the face by a firework that went screeching at her. The firework kept going and smacked straight into the wall of black velvet had been created and ripped it apart, exposing the reality of the canyon behind it. She looked up in the air where the light source was coming from, and her eyes widened and jaw dropped in anger and shock. Pinkie Pie wasn't even actively trying to do anything herself, but was a flurry of activity. Her body and mind, her heart and soul, were all reacting entirely on their own accord. She was spewing out colored sparks and light from her body, firing fireworks off in all directions, blowing apart the bleak, hopeless destitute that had been brought to bear upon them all. The light flowing from her began to cover her friends in a brilliant pink glow, stripping the black blood from them and shaking them from their own pained stupor. They began to stand, feeling energized, and losing all semblance of fear and weakness. Even Twilight was capable of getting to her roofs, and though she still appeared weak, she was able to stand all on her own. Applejack's rock hide was repaired and gained a lustrous shine, and Flathoof's wounds and bruises healed. Fluttershy's bonding bracelet glowed bright, and a light burst out of it. Uffinum circled around her again as a shining silver orb. Rainbow stood front and center, a confident grin plastered on her face as Applejack and Flathoof took up position at her side. Most of the fireworks seemed to gravitate toward Red Velvet, who tried to avoid and swat them away, but found that there were too many of them and became overwhelmed by furious blasts of light and colors. One screeched right at her and exploded in her face with a resounding KABLAMO! And knocked her flying into Starlight's shadow. The two of them tumbled and rolled until they came to a stop near the others. Starlight shook her head of her delirium and looked around in panic. What's going on? What happened? Where am I? Curacao quickly moved over to Starlight's side.
Ma Capitan, it seems be best if we retreat while we still have a chance. They look refreshed and they have, again an ally. Our advantage is lost.
Starlight grit her teeth and glared at Red Velvet, who was slowly losing her black aura whose eyes were gradually returning to normal. She shook her head dejectedly.
Very well,
she agreed.
Perhaps it would be best if we regroup and plan for our next assault. Stay close, sister.
We're leaving. Starlight began to charge up a spell with a bright white glow from her horn. Rainbow Dash saw it and rocketed towards them as fast as she could, the body exploding into a bolt of lightning.
Oh no, you don't!
She was suddenly interrupted when a great weight landed on top of her, and watched in disappointment as Starlight's group all warped away in a flash of silver light. With a grumble, she rolled over to face who was responsible for stopping her.
Dang it, Pinks! You let them get it!
Pinkie's tail began twirling around rapidly, firing multicolored sparks about like a sparkler. Making all the others in the groups avert their eyes, considering what they knew that Pinkie sense meant. Even Flathoof followed suit, despite not knowing about the Pinkie sense, since it was clear enough to see what it meant without it. Rainbow nervously chuckled and tried to fold her wings back in as Pinkie pulled away, then frowned when she saw Pinkie crying.
Hey, come on, Pinks. You don't need to cry. I'm back, okay? I know you are, Dashy. That's why I'm crying.
Pinkie smiled with a sniff.
They're happy tears.
Heh. Right. Dash smiled back.
Mind getting off of me, though? I kinda need to say something to every pony.
Pinkie nodded and helped Rainbow Dash up. He nervously walked over to the others. She scuffed a hoof through the dirt, unsure where to start.
Hey guys?
They all looked at her with varying degrees of hurt and disbelief and relief. Applejack took a first step forward, moving her hoof to take off her hat before realizing it wasn't on her head. She sighed, shook her head, and looked back at Rainbow. Rainbow Dash?
Yeah. Hey there, AJ. Look, let me just get right to the point and say that I'm sorry for what I said, and Applejack held up a hoof to stop her, then took another big step forward. She lifted a hoof to her mouth and spit on it, then held it out, offering it to Rainbow. Rainbow looked at it a moment, then spit on her own hoof and took Applejack's with hers, and gingerly shook it. She smiled, relieved. So, you guys aren't mad?
Applejack chuckled.
Shucks, Shitty Cube. Sure we're mad. Y'all said some things that hurt. I mean hurt. I ain't never been madder at any pony in my entire life. I'm sorry,
Rainbow said, her smile melting away into a disappointed frown.
I didn't mean to blow up like that. I really didn't. I'm sorry. Can you guys forgive me?
You know what, Rainbow? Forgiveness is what friends are for. Applejack smiled. Besides which, this is y'all we're talking about. I know it takes a lot to make y'all admit you made a mistake and to ask for forgiveness. I've known you too long to think y'all ain't really sorry for what you said and did. So while I can't speak for every pony, I'll say as much for myself. I forgive you. And with seeing how Pinkie reacted, I'd say she forgives you too.
That's right!
Pinkie bounced as she wrapped Rainbow up in a bone-crushing hug.
My Dashy's back, and that makes me happier than anything in the whole wide world. Well, not anything,
she added with a sad smile as she looked at every pony else.
It'd make me even happier if every pony else was as happy to see you too.
Reddy stepped forward with a bright smile on her face too.
Oh, of course we're happy to see Rainbow again, Pinkie dear. Rainbow, darling, I know you said a lot of things that you didn't mean. We're all a little on edge. Well, with the hunger and being ambushed and having our friends hurt and...
Flathoof perked up suddenly in a panic.
Oh, Lockwood! Lockwood! Where are you, buddy?
He shouted as he began looking about the cannon. Fluttershy was right behind him, but stopped a second to smile and nod at Rainbow Dash. Tock helped Twilight over, as the purple unicorn had lost the burst of strength that allowed her to help her friends put up the intimidation showed earlier. The two of them also smiled at Rainbow Dash. Tock's smile began especially surprisingly and genuine to the Pegasus, who never expected to see Tock glad to see her. Twilight spoke first.
I'm glad you're back, Rainbow.
We all are, Tock agreed. Forgive me if I don't get all my sappy and instead... Forgive me if I don't get all sappy and instead get straight to the point. But since you're back, I assume this means more help is on the way? I'm glad to see you got through. Rainbow held up a hoof to interrupt. Sorry to disappoint everybody, but I didn't get in. Oh, the TikTok frown. Well, that's a shame. Why not? Long story short, it was going to take too long to get in, or I'd have to, pay, she added nervously. Right, yeah, pay. I don't have any bits, just like you said. You were right. TikTok patted Rainbow on the shoulder. It's alright, Rainbow. I'll be honest. I was actually hoping I'd be wrong. Well, no matter. It would seem we'd best get back on our original plan then. Rainbow's face turned serious a moment. Actually, I wanted to ask you, considering I wasn't able to get in easily at all, how are you planning on getting in? They said I had to wait at least 2 days just to be let in the door while they did a background check? We were supposed to sign in way back in Pandemonium, I guess. Oh, right. TikTok sighed. Sad to say, we couldn't exactly stop by the airship landing to see their representatives. What with being on the run and all. Did you try anything else? Well, they said something about a password. That ring any bells? Password. Don't know anything about any sort of password. TikTok blinked. Also, something about some pony to vouch for you, to let you in. TikTok brightened at the mention. Ah, good. Then it would seem Lockwood's insistence wasn't all for naught. He said he knew some pony within the city that could help us get in, even without meeting with a representative beforehand. I've been meaning to ask him about it, but, well, not that you say we have to. Oh dear. Rainbow frowned. Shoot! That means we need to hurry. If Lockwood's our only chance to the city, then... Applejack agreed, her face firm. Then let's quit yapping. Let's quit yapping our gums, talking about it, and every pony get ready to move out. And Dash? Yeah, AJ? It's good to have you back.
Editor's proscript 6:13:12. Click Pinkie's awesome for a surprise explanation on how she was able to beat back the darkness. Rainbow Epic Face! Thank goodness I am finally done with this stupid chapter. I swear it is cursed or something. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the text that goes on by the end of the story, where I had to use my really evil deep demon voice, and it hurt really bad. I'm probably not going to be singing any for a while, which sucks because I love to sing. And that's why my Pinkie sounded so weird by the end. Yeah. Ugh. Oh, and another thing that I think this chapter is cursed. It took me about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks to actually get this recorded. You know why? As I explained in the beginning, because the stupid recording totally went berserk and I had to restart from the beginning. And this is going to even take even longer because I have to go back and do the sound effect thingy, the sound effect stuff for Velvet. Oh, this is going to take forever. In the meantime, well, not in the meantime, because it'll already be out by now, but in the meantime, go check out my channel, scaroe89. Thanks for watching, and what else can I say? Like, subscribe, go over to my channel, like, subscribe that too. Check out Brony FanFics' other videos, they're awesome. And this was terrible. And I'm so thankful that it's finally over. Oh, wait. I have to do chapter 25. Why? Because I promised. That's why. Well, as I would say, Brony on, but this isn't my channel, so keep on spreading the magic of friendship, and I'll see you guys next time.